Live from the BoD studios, remote locations around southeastern Wisconsin, it is Playin and Slayin, episode 70. That's a good number, 70. We're old.
Mm-hmm.
It's not 100 though, so we got to keep
Yeah.
going. We got to keep making content to get to 100. All right, big episode. I can see something on Troy's monitor behind him now.
Oh.
That's a good outtake, though. But anyways, in episode 70, other than what we can see on Troy's monitor, we have a very special guest, Brendan from Cubic Shenanigans, our sister podcast, our co-geographically located brother podcast. We talk about them, they talk about us sometimes. We've enjoyed many a game played with them and tournaments. Troy and I have both been on Cubic Shenanigans, and we had a chance to return the favor as we look at our charity army project, and the army is Seraphon. There was recently a new book. Dan and Brendan do a very good job of Battletome reviews and talking about kind of list building. And so we thought, let's be a Battletome review podcast for the first time ever, 70 episodes in. And we review the limited edition Seraphon Battletome that came in the Army box that released roughly a month or so ago. So full Battletome is coming, but sat down with Brendan and went deep into the Army book, some of the war scrolls that stand out, some of the abilities, artifacts, so on and so forth. And then we're obviously gonna, talk about the things that you all love to hear about, what we've been playing, hobbying, reading, so on and so forth. All right. When you're playing and slaying, it is important to stay hydrated. What are we drinking? Troy, gonna start with you, the torchbearer.
Robust porter from Bell's.
Yum.
So good
is it
stuff.
Chewy?
Put
a fork in it and eat bites out of it. No?
It's not. It's not like a hardcore. That's why I grabbed it. Because it's not like a hardcore porter. It is only like 5% alcohol too. So it's a nice, whatever.
Nice,
it's,
yeah. It has the flavor, but not the.
Has the flavor,
body.
but it's not, and it's not gonna fill you up like too much. Cool. So it would figure to pair good with our late night recording here. So
yeah, absolutely. And Josh, I've heard a rumor from my sources that you did not have a liquid death for us. You actually got something with alcohol in it.
I have a beer. I have a Pilsner. I have a world-ending Pilsner. From Three Floyds Brewing Company. It's Speed Castle. There you go. Speed Castle. Yeah, it's pretty good. I like it. It's a good Three Floyds brew out of Munster, Indiana.
Excellent. I think I've had this one of the last few episodes, but the pistachio cream ale from Indeed. Trying to finish them. I had a couple left in the fridge, and I'm like, I just need to get rid of this. And I've described it before. It's a little sweeter than I'd like for a cream ale. I couldn't drink more than one or two, but I do like pistachios and I do like cream ales. I'm just not sure I like a pistachio cream ale, but figured I'd try to get rid of it tonight.
Yep. And I believe this porter is left over from Adepticon from our friends that left
this
it for us.
This is also left over from Adepticon. That's why I'm trying to get rid of it here a couple months later.
For more shows like this, check out the Goonhammer Media Network. More info at media.goonhammer.com.
All right, so let's talk about Playin, guys. I am so happy that we continue to get Frosthaven to the table. That is maybe my favorite board game of all time. I'm liking the story that we're telling, the leveling up. We did have our first kind of run-in with a scenario that was a little hard to figure out. we had to go to the internet to look for some strategies and
to
bring
play
it
it
back
right.
to the table and play the rules right. So the first time we played it, we got the rules wrong and we got destroyed. Then I feel like we did play it a second time, but we also got destroyed because we didn't quite do the right thing.
We didn't go all in. Yeah, I think we didn't go
Yeah.
all in on the strategy, or at least, I'm like, oh, I got the strategy, I got this, and then it's like, oh no,
yeah,
we really have to do this.
And then the third time we knocked it out of the park. Like that felt easy. Like I got in the right position and I went into this like kind of cheesy, do this action, take a rest, do this action, take a rest, where I could finish it out as you guys just kind of gathered some loot and finished your hands. But I'm really digging that we're getting to the table relatively frequently to play. We've got a hand. I don't know what we're probably like 12 scenarios, 13 scenarios in total. Starting to build out the town, starting to see we're approaching our first winter. So the outpost is gearing up for likely some monster attacks, but think we're going to try to play again this weekend, and we should hit winter and then see what the outpost what happens once we get there. So we've also opened up a couple of the character options, so there's other characters you can introduce, and there's been some cool ones. It'll be fun to maybe get some of those into the mix. But yeah, that was good, and will continue to be. We've been leaving it set up over at Josh's on the gaming table, which is a huge help to not have to do the setup and pack up every time you play it from a time saving standpoint. And I will force us to do a in-depth Frosthaven review at some point, because I enjoy that game far too much to not give it a full treatment.
I'm on board.
Then when Josh had something going on, Troy and I still needed to get together. We couldn't play Frosthaven, so we did the next best thing, got together with John and played another board game, Lost Ruins of Arnak, which we've talked about before. Is a pretty cool asymmetric kind of worker placement deck builder where you're exploring lost civilizations. But we added in the expedition leaders expansion, where you take a unique expedition leader, you get some new action types, and it plays way different with the expedition leaders expansion than just the default out of the box game. I really like it. I think it improved like the feel of play quite a bit, and each of us had a distinctly different approach to the game, which I think made it a lot of fun. Troy, what did you think about expedition leaders?
Yeah, I mean, I liked Arnak, and adding the expansion. I don't know that I would play it without it now, right? I think it just added that much. And I mean, I think I liked Arnak before. I guess I didn't even know I was missing it, but adding that in there just gave you a whole new dimension. And it just felt like, I mean, it didn't add a lot of time or complexity or anything like that. It just added, I don't know, more options, or you kind of had more strategy. Like you definitely had your leader basically, let's say, kind of gave you a channel, but they're going to be good at certain things, and you kind of leaned into that. But then you also knew what the other people were kind of leaning into too. So it was, again, Arnak is a little bit of like, you want to deny a little bit, and there's not a ton, there's player interaction because it's worker placement, right? But you can't, always directly interact or block, but you want to be aware of what they're doing so that you can make sure you counter. And again, the scoring tracks, right? The different scoring tracks, you want to make sure that you're not letting somebody completely run away with the research track or the exploration and things like that. So yeah, it was a good, I mean, we hadn't played since maybe Gen Con, I think we played. And I don't think John had played before, but he hadn't played
been a while.
In quite a while. So
yeah. And then the other day, played a game with Landon, Zombie Kids. I know years ago I talked about this. It's kind of like a legacy light style board game for kids where you're defending the school from zombies. And now that we'd opened everything up, we haven't brought it back out in a while. So we played a game with the super zombies and like the characters that you get, and had some fun with that. defending the school from a zombie invasion. You try to move around and lock the doors and eliminate the zombies. So that was pretty fun. And we also played Zombicide Undead or Alive the other day with my brother and his girlfriend on the gaming table, which I'll talk about a little later. But got the first game played on that. So
nice.
That's what I've been playing. How about you guys? Josh, any
I haven't really I haven't really been playing much. The youngest, who usually plays games with me, has recently found learn how to draw videos on YouTube.
Yep.
And so that's been almost all of her time, is learning how to draw different things. So but my son, while she's doing that, has pulled me into Mario 3D World. He got it for Christmas or something, I don't know. But all of a sudden, that's his jam. So we've been playing that on the Switch. So that's been kind of fun. But
nice.
Yeah, not any traditional board gaming.
Yeah, I'm learning all about Pokemon. Is it Arceus, which is kind of the open world one on Switch, and then my daughter asked for Animal Crossing because she saw a video and excited. So so I'm learning about Animal Crossing too around that. So interesting. I know those are both probably a year or more old, but I'm just getting into them now.
Yeah,
so.
Because I'm a bad parent, I'm learning about Resident Evil: The Village.
Nice.
And all of the intricacies of Resident Evil. So awesome. Landon's been playing a ton of that.
It's good, like that one. So we have on our off nights or whatever, I have been getting the Board Game Arena, which price is going up, unfortunately. So I think but again, it's like $35, $36 a year, which we're like, that's not even one board game. So I think the amount of actually games that they've been adding to it. I'm sure there's outrage somewhere on the internet that they raise the price, but
that's the inflation. That's the cost of a large pizza, right?
Right. It's not, I mean, I didn't feel, because all of a sudden Ben was like, oh, they're raising the price. I'm like, well, it's going to be like 50 bucks. I'm like, oh, they raised it $5. Like, all right. I mean, it's not, it's like, it's still like, I can't buy one single board game that I probably played on there for that $35. So, so we've been getting that, and we played kind of the heavier game we played was called Earth. And I think I had talked or I think we talked about that. Interesting game. Maybe it's kind of a open world engine builder is what they call it. You kind of end up, it's about plants, and you're basically building an island, and you have cards, very card based. And you basically are building out kind of a 4x4 square of cards, and they have different kind of plants, and they have different kind of types, and then your kind of engine is kind of the relationships between the different types of cards. And so you run through that. So we played that one evening. It was interesting. I liked it. I probably liked it more than like Arc Nova. That's probably a hot take. Just a little, not that are even kind of simple, but I like the scoring here, and kind of the engine building part of it felt a little bit more, felt really fun to kind of build it out. And there was kind of also the physical representation of building out this island was pretty cool, and the rules there. That said, I don't know that I would play it in person. Like Arc Nova, like there's so many different rules. Like when you have all the different cards, basically as you get the cards laid out, they're all as the game goes on, each row is you basically go through each row, because basically it's very similar. On your turn, you're picking a type of turn of order or whatever turn thing, and then that dictates a color, I think, and that kind of activates different for every player. It activates certain cards in their engine, right, and rows. So there's a lot of interaction, and like again, I could see that where if you didn't have the computer doing everything for you, like you're definitely going to miss rules and things like that if you're not paying attention. So especially late game, you can have a lot going on for that. But it was fun. I would recommend trying it out if you like that kind of gaming around there. So and again, really cool, kind of pictures, very different, and you learn a little bit about different kinds of plants and animals and flora and habitats and things like that too. Kind of just like Arc Nova, right, where you have all the different animals and things on there too. So that's probably the comparison where you're kind of learning science stuff in there. So we kind of enjoyed that one. And then the other day we got to the table some classics, Century Spice Road, which is we always call the Splendor Killer, although Josh doesn't agree, but had fun with that. We hadn't played that in a while. And then we just had to finish off the night with again, the online version of Seven Wonders that you can basically play in about 11 minutes is it's kind of funny how it turns Seven Wonders, which is like a very, the setup, when you think about where in the physical, right, it'd take you how long it would take you 11 minutes to set the game up, right? At least it probably takes you more than that. And you can basically online, you can speed play and run through that. So we hadn't done that in quite a while. Actually, it's kind of funny. Seven Wonders Architects has been the game that's been getting a lot of play. So we went back to kind of the classic Seven Wonders, but still the same, still fun. So
sweet,
nice. Well, let's dive in the hobby. I think it's been a minute since we recorded. So Josh 3D printed a number of building materials for me, for like struts and roof section or like floor sections, to build like a construction site of like a skyscraper style building. And I went and I primed them all, kind of laid them all out, and then started building and came up with like a 4.5, 5-story tall structure for Marvel Crisis Protocol. Kind of got the build idea, what I want it to look like. And then so now it's ready to paint. It's going to take a while, so I think that'll be get the airbrush out to do base coat, so I'm not banging my head against the wall like I was when I was individually painting bricks on the last Crisis Protocol train. I've been putting together the Necron box, like not Kill Team, Combat Patrol. So in advance of 10th edition coming, to try to get some Necron together. I've got to put the Croissant together, and I think like 5 of the Immortals, and then I'm done. So I built like half the stuff. And then I took a practice run on building up the textures and the layers for our basing scheme for the Charity Army. So jungle bases. Kind of followed Vince Hobby Cheating. He does a jungle bases video. We'll talk more about this in depth later, but I just wanted to get kind of a prototype, see what I could do. And I think I got some cool textures. I bought a bunch of different basic materials from Kick-Ass Mail Order, so a hobby shop, game store up in Oshkosh, Adventure Games that we talk about. They have a mail order website. Now, granted, I'm not local exactly, but it's almost like next day shipping. It's crazy how fast for the $8 kind of flat rate shipping I'm getting the stuff. But I bought a bunch of different like plants and temple ruin bits and basing material, just like textures and tufts, different stuff, and had a lot of fun. Troy, if I think about it, maybe I'll try to get you a picture or something for putting out there. And that's kind of been it. I need to get painting. I need to do a lot more. But I've been dabbling, just kind of what intrigues me, and then put it aside for a while. How about you guys? Anything hobbying in the basement of death?
I did miss. I'll jump back to a play because I don't have a lot of hobby, and I don't think we talked about this. Is Eric actually came over and we played some Kill Team a while ago. It was kind of in that, and I don't think I mentioned it, but again, that was fun to get that to the table. And I did a lot better than the last time I played him because I actually kind of remembered how to play and things like that too. But he still won. But it was a fun game. It was good, and got to break out some train and got kind of the juices flowing there. So, and then hobby wise, I really haven't been procurement. I think I did pick up the sorry, no, who's the new the Lion? Sorry, I should remember that. I did pick up the Lion just because I don't know. He's
the most recent Chaos Primarch.
Yeah, you're well, Chaos. You can go either way. You can just whatever you whatever you want to do. So that's for Kermit. I'm trying to think if I got any more. Got the Seraphon box that was also procured to get the codex and some miniatures that we can start throwing together there. So haven't got like paint to brush or anything or glue to plastic in a while, but just trying to clear some space too. I finally opened my Massive Darkness 2. Maybe this should be crowdfunding, but I opened it up to figure out what I was going to just pass over to Noble Knight to that. So yeah, part of it, my hobby is to clean the palette a little bit of still cleaning out stuff that I'm just looking at so that I can feel like I can concentrate on things.
Troy, you went a step further than I did. When I took Massive Darkness 2 to Noble Knight, it was literally, I had the packing form from the top of the box in a sealed big box, and I said, here's what's in it, here you go. I didn't even like open the box. So you got one step further down the road of enjoying your kickstarting fulfillment.
It's because I'm a Zombicide completionist. So literally what I'm doing is scraping out the pieces I can use for Zombicide Black Plague and then the rest of it is kind of all going. And some of it, it's really hard. Like I have a hard time just like dropping shit in the trash. But that might be what I do because it's not even worth, is it even worth putting on eBay? Is it worth my time or anything else like that? So, but
that's why I love the pennies on the dollar of Noble Knight. Like I still feel like at least it's maybe going to go somewhere and find a good home.
Right. That somebody's using it because this feels so bad to just like toss it. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Josh, how about your hobby?
Yeah, bringing it back to hobby. I guess procurement is hobby, right? So I 3D printed. You can see it behind me. This red building from Corvus Games, who's awesome, by the way. I just want a little plug for Corvus Games Train. I 3D printed this store building a couple years ago, I think. It was like one of the first buildings I printed with the 3D printer, and it's been sitting there, and I've been meaning to do something with it. And so I finally sprayed it, got out the airbrush, and I sprayed it couple different red tones, and left a little bit of black tones in there too. So it's looking pretty good. I'm not going to go crazy and do every brick like Ty did with his, but kind of just getting some bases down, and I started with a little bit of the detail work, but haven't done a ton with it yet. So, but yeah, that's kind of been my project for right now.
I'll send you a video. A guy uses like drywall compound for a 3D printed brick where he kind of drags it over and then wipes it away so the compound stays in the seams.
Oh, look at that.
It's funny you say that.
Yeah.
I've got my drywall compound. Yeah, I saw a similar video. Maybe it's the same one. I don't know. I was going to test it out on some... this is actually 3 levels tall. I'm only going to do it for 2. And the third one, I'm going to test different styles of doing the brick. So yeah, we'll see what ends up being the winner. But yeah, I saw that video and it looked really cool. So
all right, let's do it. Speaking of Massive Darkness 2, I mean that came from Kickstarter. So let's talk about crowdfunding. I'll start because I have a confession to make, guys.
Did you do it?
I've been a bad person. I didn't actually back White Death, but that was out there. I'm pretty sure Troy did because of heavy metal models.
Yep.
Lacuna Coil or whatever.
Yep.
I avoided that, but I then went and I said, well, I've got Gloomhaven I barely touched. I've got Frosthaven that I'm playing. Let's get another big campaign style game. and I backed a late back, so I might even get it here this year. Oathsworn, Into the Deep Woods or Into the something Woods. It's kind of like a Viking-esque, more like historic, like Saracen archer and like a Viking warrior, but it's each chapter has like a boss fight and narrative, and you can play them individually, but there's also this overarching story. It's their second edition, kind of a reprint. The more I looked at it on like Board Game Geek and other places, people that played it have reviewed it incredibly well, and everyone raves about this being like the best campaign game. So I was like, I need to get in. So I did like a $250, pledge, and was like, whatever, let's just on backer kit went and did it. And I will likely regret it when it sits there and I don't touch it. But hopefully I'll set it up and solo. Because I also heard it is a lot of fun to play solo. So like, worst case scenario, I'll sit down in my basement and play a game by myself when I should be doing something else.
Yeah.
And then I got the link to download the so Free League released the Walking Dead role-playing game Kickstarter. They said soon we'll have the PDF. So they released the link for the beta copy of the rule book. And I've just been kind of filtering through that after downloading off drive-through. I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty pleased where they're at with it. And I think they're kind of treating this as like not a true like play test, but they'll collect some feedback and like, use this to refine what they send to print. So I got that. So I avoided one big pledge. I made another, and then I got something fulfilled. So that's my Kickstarter experience here recently. Have you been as good, Troy, or worse?
No. Well, so the first one I have on here, I didn't do, but I just want to put it on here because this is one of these. So Firefly 10th edition, and I'm looking at my Firefly game over there. So they're redoing the Firefly game. That's Gale Force 9, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if in that, so redoing it. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years that game kind of what I don't know if it's a game or the show or whatever. It's got to be the show is more than 10 years, right? So I think the game might have been around for 10 years, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
But I'm torn, right? Because I love the IP, whatever. But every time we played the game, it's just like it never is a fulfilling experience. It's like it always just kind of it stays its welcome. It kind of so it just maybe, and I don't know that they're fixing the game this time. They're just adding more stuff to it, and like
Zia did everything that Zia did everything that Firefly should have done.
Yeah,
and did it like better.
Yeah.
Which is really disappointing because
Zia's right next to it on my shelf over there. Which
Zia's a great game, but it's like
play many more times though.
Yeah, there's like no IP backing behind it, right? It's just so the story is kind of hard to like really care about, but
yeah. So that's it. I mean, I wouldn't back it, but it's interesting that it's out there and there's people that would, and I don't know, is it one that like people buy it just to have like here it's a collector, like it's going to be really cool, it's going to be blinged out, right? But it's literally would get bought and then move onto the shelf and replace the version that's sitting over there right now. So interesting. I think that's still out. I don't know if it's still backing or if there's late backing or whatever but that's floating around out there. I think the one is over is Catalyst was doing a big push, especially around Adepticon, around the BattleTech Kickstarter, that they're kind of giving it life. It was interesting. I don't know if we talked. I mean, I don't know if you guys noticed it. Like there seemed to be a lot of reinvigoration around BattleTech, especially at Adepticon. A lot of people playing it. It like we all got a free miniature, and that had always like even looking at that, like, wow, they're actually doing decent miniatures now. Because I always felt like the BattleTech miniatures, right, were just kind of like very basic, not anything you'd. But they're at least the free ones we got were like, oh, they really kind of upped their game like they should have, right? This would be something to be fun, at least even fun to paint, right? I don't know. I've never been excited. It's one of those games again, similar that I love the lore. I read all the books that got me, like Mike Stackpole and things like that. Love the universe. The game, I always thought just kind of like, I was never like that super crunchy kind of person. So the game kind of fell flat. I know they have like an Alpha Strike and things like that, but so I went in on the Kickstarter mostly just to get additional fiction and kind of the lore and so the cool stuff. Like you'll also get the game along there, but I don't know that I might just, again, that might end up at Noble Knight at somewhere. But I was excited because they're doing some news stories and things like that, and I think there's a Mike Stackpole thing in there. So I went down that. I was kind of like, and then there were some of these extra things, kind of Kickstarter exclusive things that got me excited about that. I'm like, all right, I'll go in on that one. So so I did get, I don't know, I probably will not play Battletech, but I will read some of there, maybe paint some miniatures or cool stuff there. And then I did do White Death as Ty, because there were some certain miniatures that were just must have around some of that. And I'm interested in the school. I'm actually not that interested in kind of the Asian theme of kind of like, okay, it's interesting, whatever. I'd probably maybe take it and just play the old Black Plague world and things like that, and Green Horde. But and we'll see that. I'm not going to see that until maybe this time next year. We'll be talking about getting White Death, I think, is kind of the timeline. So
yeah,
that's about it. And then I do have, I did get, well, if I get it right, I should take it out of the shrink, right? So this is Cinematic Adventure. This is like the new version of D20 Modern that they did. I have I'm not going to grab that. There's a huge rule book for that, and then they're doing these cinematic packets for like the Crow, and I think there's one now for Kong. What's the movie? The latest movie, the latest Kong movie, Island. Yeah,
Skull Island.
Skull Island. They did I think there's an Escape from New York model. It'd be interesting. Again, that's when we get between the sheets to the video here, Ty. It's coming. Yep. We have lots of fodder. We have lots of content to talk about.
We sure do.
It's just interesting how they're kind of doing, kind of taking some of these cinematic IPs and doing, they're kind of set up for very, they're short campaign, kind of one shot, kind of adventure kind of things with that, but some cool stuff. And they had some really decent firepower, and I think in the design there. So I think it's a decent engine, but it'll be interesting to check it out. So, but I got the hard copy of that stuff showed up in the last whatever. So,
well, so not Kickstarter, but I purchased after Christmas a game table from a guy I found on Etsy, Under the Table Gaming. Kevin, he kind of he started on it around Adepticon. A few weeks later, he's like, "Hey, I'm shipping it." Just got it a couple weeks ago. I bought a kind of custom made table topper, so it's not a like full on table, but it's a gaming surface that you put on top of another table. So kind of the inverse that most people would look to put a regular tabletop on their gaming table. I went the other way around. I've got it set up, so I built it. I put the shelves on. Assembly took like 20 minutes. There were some bolts and like slats to just kind of put, so it's two halves. Has the cup holders inset, 4 like player shelves for like components, cards, whatever. And almost it's just under 3x5 like kind of surface area. It's probably like 30 inches by like 58 inches or something to play on. But fits most games. Just wouldn't use it for like miniatures, but very happy with it. So that's Under the Table Gaming on Etsy. I think he's got a website, underthetablegaming.com, but I found him through Etsy and ordered through there. And I think his website directs back to his store on Etsy. So really great product. Construction's really good. It's solid. The wood stain is nice. Like everything just kind of fit together like really easily to put the washer and the bolts in and screw them tight, and boom, there was my table. So And then the other item that I did want to talk about, which I'm actually very excited for, is an announcement is made recently. Dungeons and Dragons, so E1, it's Hasbro's entertainment company. They did the D&D movie. They announced that they are putting together a fast, so that is free, ad-supported television. So basically, it will be a streaming platform. They've enlisted a handful of shows from content creators like Matthew Lillard will be a part of one. And Counterparty is another one that Kerry Payton, he was Ezekiel in Walking Dead. He will be lending a cast member on, along with the others. They'll be streaming the old 80s D&D cartoon episodes. They haven't announced any like partnerships of what services like they'll offer their content onto. But there's so much that they'll likely be able to do with that. And you think about, the shows they do, the D&D lives, the various like presentations, maybe Magic the Gathering comes in at some point as they have content there. Who knows? But like it gives them a platform that is not behind a paywall. And that does not hide presenters and make them only hands like another gaming company that has put out a streaming platform. So I was pretty excited to see the news in Variety. I mean, obviously Hasbro's a monolith right now, and they have this whole wing of the company dedicated to digital media and film and TV. There's a Magic Planeswalker Netflix show I've heard buzz about. Like they're just, the movie was so good that now I think
I think they see they have an audience out there, right, that they can, and it'll be interesting to see like what are they going to do. It's probably in their best interest, like if they can do something semi standalone, right, then they're not, because you don't want, because you go to YouTube, then you're giving YouTube your money, right? Problem is that if they go to they could almost stand on their own as a it's just put up a streaming channel, and then and then they're getting any revenue that they need, and they're in control, I think, right? I think that's and they earn some of that. So, and it'll be interesting. Yeah, again, it's just they have so many different 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 things that they could put onto that channel. So,
and then they have they're doing a Heroes Feast. It's like they're going through the cookbook that they did and showing like the dishes, and one is like an expert chef, and the other is kind of a novice, and they'll go through and like prepare the meals. I think it sounds like a cool format for a kind of a live show, not playing D&D, but tapping into
D&D baking show.
Yeah, let's go. That's a great idea for an adventure. The party finds themselves in a cloud giant castle, and they have to prepare 3 dishes, and the worst dish gets thrown off of the castle. All right. Let's talk library. Let's talk reading. And before we get into what we've each been reading individually, we have enjoyed in the past doing kind of a Discord book club. And we often will read the same books at different times. And we thought, how much fun would it be to do a book that most of us haven't read, and do like a book club style discussion and review, and give you all an opportunity, listeners, viewers, to read it as well over the next 2 months. And when we do our show in July, we will then, during the library segment, kind of do a book club style discussion with some questions that maybe we can get out in June, so that you can kind of be thinking about it. And that book is, so I ranted and raved about how great this book was. So obviously I've read this one, but the other 3 have not. So we selected Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, the first book in the Bloodsworn trilogy, to do as our discussion book club style, not next episode, but the one after it.
Yeah.
So if you haven't read it, go get yourself a copy at a library, find it on Audible. whatever you want. Get a big paper soft cover book if that's your style, and then read it in like 4 hours because you just can't put it down. So Shadow of the Gods, John Gwynn, will be our Playin and Slayin book club episode. And if we like doing it, maybe we'll put some other books to read together too.
Yeah, man.
So, all right, I'm going to dive into my reading list and viewing list. So I watched season 1 of Severance. That show was a complete mind destroyer. As I watched it, I'm like, what is going on? What is happening? Why is everyone okay with this? And just the tension kept ratcheting up, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't handle this. Then I watched the 9th episode, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go watch the finale. And I was like, shit, that was the finale. How dare they? How dare they do that?
Yep.
So yeah, Severance was a lot of fun. And I think very well done. Apple TV just continues to do great stuff. Everything I've seen on the platform's been really good. I'm Succession I put on here, I'm so far behind. I've watched a couple episodes, and I've been putting off watching the 3rd episode. No spoilers, but I know the spoilers, which makes it not exciting. So I've been putting off. I read The Getaway God, Sandman Slim, book 6. Finished that. I read Chain Gang All Stars. I'm gonna slaughter the author's name, but this book just released, and it is about a prison gladiator league. So it's near future where the corporate prisons have created this combat sport, but it's people fight to the death. So gladiator style combat, but it is a criticism of kind of our corporate incarceration, how we treat prisoners as a different class of people. It's basically legal slavery, the prejudice that exists in the justice system. It's a criticism of all of the problems that incarceration brings to society. And it talks about kind of how the prisoners are forced into this, and they don't have that control, and the technology makes it such a way that millions of people watch, and they treat it like reality TV. The author is Nana Kwame Adiji Brenya, and it focuses on 2 women that are both very successful in this combat league, the Chain Gang All Stars, but they broadcast their matches, and but there are footnotes throughout that talk about real world prisoners and issues and circumstances. So it'll talk about one prisoner, and then they reference a prisoner that was on solitary for so long that they ended up having significant mental health issues because of how bad solitary confinement is, so on and so forth. But it reads like an action kind of near future sci-fi, really exciting book, but it has this kind of underlying this is the problem. This is why this shouldn't be fun and exciting, and why this is exploitative, and who's benefiting from that, right? So very good.
So is it it made me, and you mentioned it made me think, is it this generation's version of the Running Man movie, or is it a different tone or whatever?
It is, but I don't think Running Man captured.
I mean, they touched on it a little bit. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, right? But they touched on it. But it sounds like this is a little bit more front and center with hey,
and I mean, we're 30 years later of this situation only getting worse. The demographics of the prison populations, skew heavily towards poor, non-white, the dollars involved, like the contracts and the millions of dollars that change hands, has only gotten worse. So I mean, like, it shines a light on what is a societal problem.
Yeah.
I get, like, I'll get off my soapbox, but like, I'd recommend go and read it.
Yeah.
You'll learn something, and then you'll question kind of how you think about
Yeah.
like justice and punishment and incarceration and what that does to people. Then I'm reading Our Share of Night. I talked about this one previously, but I'm making my way through that. It's written by an Argentinian author, translated. So, but it's kind of this supernatural guy. This man is trying to keep his son safe from this kind of dark, like, magic cult that his wife had been in and that he is a member of, but they're trying to keep the son safe and his talents hidden. And really enjoying that. And then I think I've got 6 hours left in Reaper's Gale. So Malazan Book of the Fallen, book 7, I believe Reaper's Gale is. And it's getting really, really good. And they just keep introducing new characters and new places. I'm like, this world keeps growing. I can't handle more names and places and storylines. Can we please just stick with what we have? But Steven Erickson's like, no, screw you. We're gonna make a real world and show you every single corner of it.
Ty, that's a feat. You're farther in Malazan than you are in Sandman Slim.
Yeah. Yeah.
Considering I think you could read all 6 books of Sandman Slim in about 1.5 of the
Malazan I could
books.
finish 5 Sandman Slim books in the time it takes me to do 1 Malazan book. But yeah. It's basically like 1 a month at this point, like on Audible, because it's like 42 hours.
Right, so that's 2. That's like, I figured it out. Like, if I dig in one of those, it usually takes me almost 2 months to get through on Audible, just for the time I listen to do that. It takes me at least 1.5 months to get through, even if I'm kind of constantly listening, a little bit every day. But
it's and I'm probably going to go and download the 8th book just because. But I did, so I went and downloaded. I'm going to revisit Mistborn because I keep hearing how great it is. And my first read,
I won't poison the well. I won't lead your thing. Let you.
I downloaded Tress on the Emerald Sea, one of his new books. That's kind of like a Princess Bride-esque story.
I heard that. Yeah.
And then a nonfiction book called The Wager, and then Rebecca Kwong's Yellowface. So I have like four books keyed up because I did the annual subscription. So I'm like, maybe I'll palate cleanse before I go to book 8 of Malazan.
Mistborn keeps popping up as a recommendation for me.
I tried to read it once and never liked it, and I'm like, maybe I missed something.
Yeah.
Saying I didn't miss anything. And
it's okay. It was, I read the 2 and I had enough. But I wasn't. Again, there's people that really love it, right? That love it and whatever. And I'm not gonna. I mean, there's some cool stuff in there. I'm kind of I totally respect Brendan Sanderson, but I am very much hot and cold with a lot of his stuff. So it's like,
How about you guys? Josh, what have you been getting into?
Well, so I'm current on Succession, and even knowing what you're about to watch, Ty, in true Succession fashion, like, it's how it all happens. It's totally worth it. It's even knowing what you're walking into. It's worth it. It's that episode's really great. Anyway, great show. Love the show. Watch the show. I dove into a show kind of on a whim called Beef. I had been watching Ali Wong stand up on Netflix, And so Beef showed up because she's in it as like a suggestion, and I was like, oh sure, I'll check it out. It's a series with Ali Wong and Stephen Yeun, and it kind of is a dark comedy. It sort of reminded me a little bit of Dead to Me, if you've seen that series with Christina Applegate. But yeah, really funny. It starts off with
it's a road rage
car
incident,
crash,
right?
Yeah, road rage, car crash, or almost a car crash incident, and then it kind of just spirals from there. And it's such a cool, I don't know. It was very interesting. Very interesting show. Then obviously Mandalorian, and I finished skipping to reading.
I just want to touch on Mandalorian. I'm
go ahead.
enjoying. I'm just enjoying. Like, I don't know about that show. Just totally enjoying the sit down. You watch an episode. I love the Bo-Katan thing.
Yep.
I think I'm 6 or 7 in, but just like I don't know what about it is. Like I don't have a lot of expectations. It's just pure like we're gonna go on a little adventure and things are gonna happen and it's Star Wars.
See, I've heard
happy.
this season's terrible, so I haven't watched it.
But I don't know what people are looking for. Like I don't have any like I don't know what they want, a big arc, or they want, like, that's not what it is. It's like it feels like it's literally every week I come, there's gonna be some stuff happening. I'm gonna see these characters I really like, and so I don't know. I mean, I haven't gotten to the end yet. I may get to the end and say, oh, that was terrible. Yeah, terrible. But I am just enjoying kind of the process of working my way through it. And it was just kind of I guess I was so disappointed in some of the other, like, I didn't get into Andor. I thought the Kenobi was like this. I was disappointed in Kenobi, maybe because I had too high expectations. And then I came back to Mandalore and I was just like, this is this is it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm having fun with it. I've heard the criticisms too, and I'm like, I guess I don't understand what people are expecting. It just seems fun to me. It's a fun Star Wars show. Anyway, so skipping and reading. So I finished Golden Sun. I think I had started it in our last episode, and I am most of the way through Morningstar. So I'm still at my 1 book per episode, or per month, roughly. So I'm I went from Kwang's trilogy to Red Rising trilogy, and now I'm going to be starting. So once I'm done with Morningstar, I'm going to jump into Shadow of the Gods and probably do that trilogy. So it's going to be a threefer. So yeah, that'll be great.
Before I forget, have you guys seen the Dave Filoni Star Wars movie news?
No.
So Filoni obviously did a lot with Mandalorian, showrunner with Favreau. Evidently, he's making Heir to the Empire. Troy, do you remember why Heir to the Empire and that trilogy is so important? Immediately following like the original trilogy. So like episodes 4, 5, and 6, it's like after that.
Doesn't it have the Mara Jade character?
Mara Jade
and Thrawn.
And Thrawn.
Right.
Perhaps coming to a Star Wars movie.
Right.
Headed by Dave Filoni.
Sweet.
That could be really cool. From like making that canon, like the expanded universe, bringing that into like film canon could be really cool. But yeah, evidently Heir to the Empire title was released like in the last day or two when you guys started talking Mandalorian. I just thought about that.
Nice.
So Troy, other than Mandalorian,
I finished The End of the Death, which is not the last book in the Siege of Terra. I hate to say it again. It was good, but I hate to say it about Dan Abnett because he's on my like top of the pedestal. But they probably needed an editor. Like they let him just like go. Like, I mean, this book was like 1,000 pages, and it's only half of it. And I don't know that it didn't need to be 1,000 pages, probably. So that's why I mean, it's hard to say. Like, okay, it's fun to get a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, I mean, we all, at some point you need to edit the book, right? There's probably a lot of storylines that didn't need, and a lot of words that didn't need to hit the page.
You better hope Dan Abnett's not listening.
Yeah,
after
we'll never
the
get
Game
him
of
on
Business
now. Now
guide.
he'll never. I
Yeah.
can't. Although
I guess we got to settle for Graham McNeil.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll see. We'll get him. We'll see. And then I mean, Ty, you warned me. I went through Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is not a sci-fi or fantasy book, but it does have to do with gaming. There's some there's some really cool. I think I want to steal like the quote out there, right, where it's like, if you design a game, you really need to think about the gamer. I got to find it because I think there's a quote in there that like just like really calls it. But I put that 5 stars. I mean, it just, and you got to read it. You told me you go on an emotional roller coaster on that.
Yeah.
But I really love. And I am very much a bittersweet kind of person. Like, so I love the way it kind of all went out. I think my comment on Goodreads was just sweet or sad, sweet, perfect. Like it just had just the balance of it. But it's not an easy listen in some ways.
No.
But
it makes you feel things. Like it definitely makes you get in touch with like loss and grief and love and heavy emotions.
And what does love mean? What is friendship? Like, there's a lot. It's really, really good. I mean, so I enjoy it. Again, like everything, it's not for everybody. Your mileage may vary, but for me and whatever, I just really enjoyed that. Again, it's about a couple of game designers and their kind of path through life kind of follows them for like 30 years through that. So get that. And then so kind of lighter side, because Sarah has been, I've been like mainlining Teen Titans. John has always kind of said, oh, it's just love it. Teen Titans Go and Teen Titans. Sarah's been and it's been kind of fun because normally she'll watch stuff and I won't, whatever. But a lot of times I will just sit down with her and we will watch. I love it. It's so much fun.
Highly recommend. Go watch Titans. Sarah can't watch it, but Titans, the HBO Max streaming show, because it focuses on those characters, but they bring it into like this R-rated kind of approach to the Teen Titans, and I've enjoyed it. But because I'd experienced Teen Titans through Landon and the cartoon, and then I watched Titans on HBO the first couple of seasons, and I'm like, oh man.
I may need to do that, because I am totally in. I'm totally bought in on some of that. And then again, whatever, I watched the Amazon Prime movie Air about the Jordan Air. Really enjoyed that. Again, as a child of the 80s, it is just an homage to the 80s and Michael Jordan. I love both those things. It's only, it's like under 2 hours long. It's perfect. It's just kind of very fun.
Is that the one with Affleck and Damon?
Affleck and Damon.
Shoe? Okay.
Yeah, about I haven't done research to understand. Like, there's a lot. I mean, in some ways, they really weave a lot about the early days of Nike and kind of how did the Air Jordans actually come. It's very much kind of woven in there. So there's kind of you're getting info dumps in between, kind of they weave it in pretty well around that. And I've never gone back to make like how true is it true? Like, I think there's a lot of it's based on very much a true, but I didn't go back and do any research to understand. Like, I assume they took a little bit of artistic license in some places, but I think some of the underlying facts and one thing and just about also, again, I assume it's pretty true, is how the deal Michael Jordan did on those shoes was kind of revolutionary on that, on how he, his name and like, and basically getting a piece of the shoe was unheard of up to that point, and it really changed the whole culture of that there. But totally just really 80s. They just like embraced that too. So me being a child of the 80s, just totally that. So that's good. And then finally, you can buy the D&D movie. So of course I bought the D&D movie and watched it again.
Yeah.
And it's still so good. And I will probably watch it again and again. So yeah.
Yeah, we watched it. So we bought the digital copy $25 or whatever,
Yep.
overpaid, and watched it, and had Nicole watch it, and she really enjoyed it. And she's never played D&D, isn't familiar, but like she enjoyed the movie, like just as a heist and comedy and action, and yeah. That was a good library. We had a lot of good stuff there.
Yep.
A lot of action.
Josh, I meant to ask you and I forgot. Why has Red Rising not been picked up for a television series?
That's a great question.
It feels like it's like prime for Amazon or Netflix or like a streaming service to come and take that book series. And
it feels like kind of like an Altered Carbon type, like they could totally do that, right? I don't know. Yeah.
Be interested where those rights are tied up. And
because as we know, it takes a small miracle for a lot of these things to actually hit the screen, right? So
all right, well, we are going to take a little break coming out of the library, and then we are going to sit down with Brendan from Cubic Shenanigans and talk Seraphon Battletome. So we'll be right back. And we are back with a special guest, Brendan Melnick, Cubic Shenanigans, ATC, Adepticon Teams, TO to the stars. I mean, man does a little bit of everything around Age of Sigmar, and oftentimes Dan and him will do book reviews. So we said, you know what? For our Seraphon Battletome review, let's bring in the expert. So Brendan, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Appreciate it. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always good to do Battletome reviews before we do Battletome reviews. Really gives me the chance to warm up. You can find my OCR Bone Reaper thoughts on 2 different podcasts before you can find it on Cubic Shenanigans. So normally, like, people have to subscribe to a Patreon to like get that kind of like advanced knowledge, but in this case you just have to listen to any podcast other than the one I'm on.
Well, we appreciate it, and obviously the Seraphon book is the limited one that came in the Army box set, because I think we are likely a couple weeks out from a real book, or it's impending. I don't know if they've set an official date yet. I just know it's summer. So take everything with a grain of salt, and it'll certainly probably change, because that's what happens. And then you get 3 more books like Lumineth.
Fair.
So first off, the Seraphon Army box, I did want to just talk about that, how great of a box it is. I think you really get some cool models in there. It came chock full of stuff too. I was not anticipating the amount of sprues that I pulled out of that Army box as I was trying to find the book at the bottom. Have you guys unboxed or taken a look yet at what's all in that?
I just pulled the book out. I won mine, and I was just like, I'll keep the models, but I'm really here just interested in the book.
Yeah. I frantically just ripped it open, and then I was like, holy crap, that's a lot of plastic. And the new Agrodons look really cool. I forget what the name of it. The Star Master, the Slan. Some fun stuff to build in there. All right. But what we've all been waiting for, let's talk about the army itself, some of the rules. Since Bryce isn't here to get distracted by all the lore and hobby up front, we'll just kind of cut to the middle of the book. and get dirty. Can
I throw in, as the non AoS guy? I don't know why. I only really played a few things, right? I'm like a Sylvaneth player, and that's about it, I think. But I had always kind of seen this and didn't really know it until I got this book and dove in. I'm like, these guys are really cool from a lore perspective, like the space lizards, and they're about as close to 40K, right? Like just go in the wrong wormhole and you come out into 40K universe, right?
They're the link.
Some of that. Yeah, and some of that. So I really enjoyed kind of just learning more about that because I had never kind of did. It got me excited for like, oh, maybe this could be my my other AoS army, just from because I do kind of really. And again, who doesn't like dinosaurs, right? So.
Before Battlefield,
dinosaurs riding dinosaurs.
Yeah.
dinos on space temple ships. Before Battlefield Gothic and those Space Hulks, there was Seraphon temple cities in space. So that was the precursor to it all. No, it is a really great book though. These limited edition ones are always beautiful art, a lot of content packed in. You don't get to like the army rules until I feel like page 70. You get but then you get into kind of how you make a Seraphon army, and I want to take some time to talk about really the two options. There's Starborn, which is, if I was going to put a sentence to it, it's kind of the magic heavy with cosmic power points, which are the kind of summoning mechanic as you do things near either wizards, astrolith bears, or the faction terrain. You accumulate points, and I think it's successfully cast spells, but we can get into that in detail with the smart person. And then the other one is the Coalesced, which is more of the monsters, Saurus, your Crocs, kind of stronger combat focused, with what is very important is the old Thunder Lizards reducing damage by 1 on attacks, which is across the entire army, which is pretty wicked from a durability standpoint. So Brendan, let's just dive in. Get your thoughts on kind of Starborn, Coalesced, some of the options there. What stood out to you as interesting, or the tech to go win? How do I win games with Seraphon?
How do you win games with Seraphon? You start by taking Croak. We'll get into that war scroll, but at 395, he's an absolute steal. You're going to see him allied into all sorts of lists. Just an absolutely insane war scroll that was crazy before, is crazy now, is crazy again. Starborn, I think you nailed it pretty well. It is certainly magic forward. The orientation of Starborn specifically is going to be your Slann, and then focused on skink, things that are keyworded skink, because your other choice really is going to be Saurus, and that's going to be primarily your Coalesced. So one of the big things in Starborn is that they have the ability to do just teleportation through heroic actions. Now you have to have a Slann to do it, but I mean, you can pick, it's a heroic action where you pick a friendly Starborn unit. It doesn't have to be skink. You're a Slann, you pick a friendly Starborn unit, wholly within 12, you set it up again on the battlefield more than 9 inches from enemy models. You can't move in the movement phase. I mean, that's solid. The other bit of Starborn is they have their summoning mechanics. They also added abilities that you can spend it on. So what you do for generating your cosmic power points is at the start of your hero phase, you get 1 point for each friendly Starborn wizard and astrolith bearer on the battlefield. And then you get 1 point for every friendly spell that you cast that isn't unbound, every successful unbind you make, and every successful dispel of an endless spell. So, before the show, Ty, you're talking about having 20 spell hero phase. I guess if you leaned in hard on the 6 hero slots, going with Croak and a bunch of Slans, like you could get close, but I think that's a waste of points.
Thank you for keeping me honest there, because if there's somebody that would bring like 5 Slann and Croak, not knowing if the points even come close to working, and then like 3 of the skink units, it would be me. I would do it just for that hour-long hero phase.
you would run out of spells to cast. That would be the problem. But I suppose you physically could take it. Maybe there's a big like narrative army that that you can run. Like Croak's Council or something like that. But it's not unreasonable to take Croak, a Star Master, and then a couple of Skink Priests, and you're looking at reliable 8 to 12 points in your hero phase. So that's what you have. So the new thing that you have is these PowerPoint spends that aren't summoning. I don't know how I feel about them. They're just like kind of in my mind, quote unquote, neat. The first one is you can spend 5 points to return D3 slain models to each friendly Starborn unit that are wholly within 12 inches of a friendly cosmic node, which are defined as Starborn Wizards, Astrolith Bearers, or your Realm Shaper engine. So, like that's fine. The other bit is for 10 points, you can upgrade your Astrolith Bearers to hand out wards of a 5 or a 6 until your next hero phase. That's pretty good. Yeah. Especially depending on where you can put your Astrolith Bearers, and then potentially using your spatial translocation to really get him where you need him to be. And then Cleanse the Realms. This is an ability I really love for like end of game situations. So you roll a dice for each enemy unit within 12 inches of any friendly cosmic nodes. Again, your wizards, your Astrolith Bearers, your Realm Shaper engines. For every 2 up, that unit suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the roll. That's a late game board wipe, potentially for a number of units. And then you have your summoning, which is your tried and true. It ranges from 8 points for 10 skinks all the way up to 30 points for an Engine of the Gods. No heroes that you can summon in there, so whatever cosmic nodes you bring with you is what you're going to end the game with. So from a Starborn player perspective, that's what you're really going to have to focus on. It's interesting. The strength comes in, the next set of things, right? When we're going to talk about command traits and artifacts and the spells, and then, overall the constellations, because you can effectively run the exact same list in Coalesced and in Starborn, and they're going to be 2 very fundamentally different armies in how you're going to approach that game. I don't think a very balanced list where you could flip between the 2 is very good. I think you are heavily incentivized to lean into whatever it is that you pick. So, cool if you've got a big collection, you can just kind of pick and choose whatever you have. But if you have a real middle of the road force, you're really going to have to pick a direction to go. The Saurus stuff, like you get things for being Saurus Starborn, and you get things for being Skink Coalesced, but like you get stuff for being Skink Starborn and Saurus Coalesced. When we get over to the Saurus Coalesced stuff, I mean, it can get real crazy real quick for some of those things. So what's the next stuff we want to talk about within Starborn? Because I know that's where you'd like to start.
Yeah, let's go into the command traits and then artifacts, and we don't got to go through like all of them, but I like what you and Dan do with kind of picking 1 or 2 if you were gonna be interested in it, and we won't go round robin, but definitely Brendan interested as you're looking at like the so the Slan only, if there's one from that list that you think is pretty neat, and then the Skink one as well. I don't know that often you would have a Skink general, I maybe, but I don't know. What are your thoughts there, just in general, on the command traits, and if there is utility to have a Star Priest walking around as your general?
Yeah, so I probably wouldn't be taking a Star Priest as my general, but the Skink on Troglodyte, the Troglodyte is nuts in this book. A war scroll that you never saw before has real meaningful play.
It's
when
a
we get to that war scroll, we're going to talk about it's nuts.
It's also a war scroll there. As I was reading through it, I'm like, what is this thing? Because I literally have never seen one on the table anytime I've played Seraphon, and I had to do is this new or is this old?
Before? Yeah. Yeah, Heath has used one before, but that was more because he really liked the model. So
yeah, so let's
so command traits.
Yeah.
For the Slann, I think the Lord of Celestial Resonance. Each time this general successfully casts a spell that is not unbound, successfully unbinds a spell, or successfully dispels an endless spell, you receive 2 cosmic power points instead of 1. That's huge. It's a 3 cast, 3 unbind with +1 to cast, +1 to unbind, +1 to dispel, and can unbind anywhere on the table. You're going to get a solid return on investment from that general.
Yeah, that too. And you think about it, I mean, that you get up to your 12 points where you can summon pretty much anything you want. I mean, 16 is kind of the sweet spot where you start getting the Raptidons, but summoning those 5 hunters with dart pipes for 12 points, that could be pretty nice. And you're doing that practically with just that Slann if you cast successfully, plus the ones you start with, and you're almost there. But I also, for my 20 spells in a turn, I do like the Vast Intellect. Just being able to select some additional spells, diversify what you can bring so you can try to cast 20 spells in a turn. I'll trot that 5 Slann army out against Troy. What about the artifact? Like, what would you pair if you were taking that Lord of Celestial Resonance on your Slann General? Is that the stav, maybe the dial?
So that was the one that jumped out to me, is the Space Folder Stave, the summon within 7 inches of an enemy. I don't know, it always kind of intrigues me when you kind of can sneak up on someone and maybe get a charge on them, right? So,
I mean, those 2 inches, that's a huge swing in success of a charge rate, but
right.
I don't know if it's worth it versus the other ones, but I'm sure Brendan can tell us the odds and what.
Yeah, it improves it from a, so 7-inch charge is a slightly better than 50%. I think it's like 56% that you're gonna land that outright. And I believe a 9-inch is something like 27.5. So right, it ends up being a meaningful difference. The other bits of it that it has, in terms of the other artifacts that you're choosing, right? So this is what you're competing against. I hate once per battle artifacts, just kind of on principle. The relocation orb is one. Prism and Amniant is one.
The Missy Elliott prism.
Yeah. And then you have your Zopic dial, which is triggers at a very specific point. And like, you heal all the wounds on your Slann. If your Slann is being injured, you have screwed up.
Yeah.
So by process of elimination, it probably is the Space Folder staff. I'd be interested in looking at this a little more closely, because I believe that this would pair with Dracothian's Tale, getting ahead of myself with the Starborn constellation, because you would have Starborn units that are being set up on that. So, drawing that line all the way through the rest of it, because you can, setting up a unit of the Agrodon Lancers off table, and then setting them up 7 inches away from enemy units. It's a really punchy unit. We'll obviously talk about it a little bit later when we get to War Scrolls, because it's one of the new War Scrolls. No thanks. That seems unpleasant.
How about the spells? I really like the spell lore. I think there's some cool ones here. Also very, they did a good job of making the spell lores, I think, feel thematic to the Starborn. When you look at Celestial Domination, and then the skink one, the Celestial Manipulation. But any of these stand out as kind of the clear winner?
So there's a combination of things here that I think is pretty fun. So you would teleport one of your skink wizards with spatial translocation. You drop them 9 inches away from an enemy unit. You cast with your Slann Mystical Unforging. You use your skink as your guy, you know, who's you're channeling it through, and you tag the enemy units who has the most important and impressive amount of Ren, and you make it Ren blank, and you go ha 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 ha, and you throw some garbage unit into them that they're not going to be able to do anything against for way too long.
Yeah.
You make an incredible exchange in terms of point efficiency. Like if you've invested 500, 600 points in your Death Star unit, and I've tied you up with a unit of 20 skinks for 3 battle rounds,
yeah,
I win that game. I win that game, you know, 900 times out of 1,000, right? Like it's you lose. It's I think that's a great spell. The taking and then potentially pairing that with Teapot's Beneficence. So you get a skink unit that you're -1 to wound if you're targeting them. The Starborn lists feel much more techy in terms of, you know, you're trying to get all your gears moving in the right direction, you're aligning the stars, as it were. It's about setting it up, I think is the best way to describe it, where when we get over to the Coalesce side, it's hitting you over the head with a hammer of what that side of this book wants to do.
Yeah.
You got to be way more patient, I think, playing the Starborn side.
I do like the Cosmic Crush. I always like the number of dice equal to units, and that's the one from your skink that's going to do, I think it's immortal if you roll higher than the save. So you get those low save 3-up units and just start sprinkling
Watch out,
immortals. Yeah. Especially because you know, there's something about a model that is literally the size of like a gummy bear, just wiping out things 2 to 3 times his size.
Yeah, the skink stuff shouldn't be ignored. I think there is a, you know, stepping it back to command traits. Shrewd Strategist. Once per battle at the start of your opponent's combat phase, you can pick 1 friendly Seraphon unit wholly within 18 inches general. And if it's within 12 inches of any enemy units, but more than 3, it can make a charge move. Yeah. That's really good. You know, the once per battle part isn't my favorite, but you can use that to tag your opponent at a really inopportune time. The Sacred Stegodon Helm, I think, is a really good artifact to put on a Troglodon, adding 1 to the save rolls for the attack characteristics that target the bear. The +1 damage is whatever. That's not what you're taking it for. You know, using that, and then the spell lore that they have is pretty good, where, right, you have Cosmic Crush, and then you have this other one, Speed of Haunchy, where you can make a move in the hero phase with a Croxagore or a skink unit that's not a monster. Yeah. Allowing yourself to position things a little bit closer to where they need to be. That technically, you could teleport your wizard out to where it needs to be, cast Speed of Haunchy on itself, make that move in the hero phase, get closer to whatever it is that you want to drop down, and then drop the bomb. You're basically getting a free Umbral spell portal from your pathetic, dinky little skink wizard that you're channeling through. It's pretty nice.
The movement too, there's so much you can do. When we get to the War Scrolls, there's that really cool interplay between the Raptidon Chargers and Hunters, where if, you know, they benefit from each other. And anytime you get a chance to just adjust movement, come out from behind your screen, do things that, you know, set you up for some of these other combos that require, like, this unit has to be in, this unit has to be out, and you want to maintain your ranges and play that control game. I don't know that I have the patience for it, but I know there's plenty of people that, you know, when you look at Starborn, like that feels like kind of the way to play this is in and out, stick and move. You know, be very aware of your deployment, your spacing, your ranges. And I think the constellations are the last thing in Starborn before we dive into Coalesced.
Yeah, so
talked
you
about Dracothian's
have two
Tale.
choices to pick
Yeah.
from. Yeah. Right, the first of which is Dracothian's Tale. So the way that this works is during deployment, instead of setting up one of the units on the battlefield, you can place it in reserve. You can set up one of those units at the end of your movement phase. And you can set them up wholly within 12 inches of a node and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. Deep Strike is good, right? I mean, there's whole armies where that's their fundamental mechanic, is being able to bring in units later around the board. Obviously, like the rest of Starborn, things hinge on cosmic nodes. So you're going to want to be bringing those units down in and around those places to take advantage of that space. Again, another one of the things that you can take advantage of, right, is using that teleportation to put a wizard out somewhere where you need it to be, and then bringing a bunch of units down around it from Dracothian's Tale. Basically, you have your stuff on your board, you bring your whole army down potentially like on a flank. You know, if you're using the stave, one of those units is going to be 7 inches away in that first turn, and then you try and just alpha.
Yeah. And then the Fangs of Sotek, I thought this one was awesome. So you basically can use redeploy. So the ability to roll the dice and move when your opponent finishes move within, 9 inches of you, you can use redeploy. This lets you do it 3 times, and the first 2 times you do it are free. Which anytime you're getting free command points, it's pretty useful. Redeploy is such a great it's a great kind of ability to use, because you can use it sometimes to move closer. You can use it to create a line. You can use it to get in the way. Like, there's just so many uses. It's not always just, oh, I want to be further away so I don't get charged. And I think sometimes people forget that, like, and having the ability to do it 3 times and twice for free, because that's every turn.
Yep.
Which is nuts.
Yep.
10 free
like
command
it doesn't need to be issued from the same point either. Like you can like spread this, like, because normally this is restricted to like one hero can issue it, you know, X many times. This is as long as you're using it on Fangs of Sotek units, obviously you will, it's your army. The first 2 times you spend them on skink units, it's free. You know, the way that it's worded, if you had to do it 3 times to non-skink units, you have to pay for all of them.
Right.
But obviously, you're leaning into the part of the book that is incentivizing skinks and is incentivizing being elusive. So obviously, you know, they're not going to let you just redeploy for free, 3 Carnosaurs in the in the skink sub faction.
But those 3 5s of Huanchi's hunters with the dart pipes that you want to just scoot around a little bit to reposition for their sniping. I mean, it's pretty.
They're not bad. I'll give them that.
Cool. All right. So Troy and Josh, you guys have been largely silent on the Starborn. Thumbs up for Starborn, or do you want to hear about Coalesced before you decide what army you're playing?
Yeah, I mean, they seem cool. They very much more spell focused and like Brendan said, kind of more finesse, right? You're kind of moving things and positioning things and being tactical, right? So, I'm not that great of a general to man that kind of army, but people that have played a lot more than me, I'm sure, their eyes light up seeing Starborn. So,
Yeah, let's dive into the coalesce because that might be up my. Although it like Starborn sounds like Josh said, it sounds really cool. It just when I'm running the army, I always end up an inch short and a dollar short or whatever the term is. But
all right, so coalesced. Two key things: predatory fighters, so army-wide kind of rules. You had 1 to bite rolls made for Coalesce Saurus and Coalesce Croxigore units with the Mighty Saurus Jaws, or Vice-like Jaws ability. So most of the Saurus and Croxigore units have it's not an attack profile, but it's an ability where I think it's at the end of combat or their activation.
Yeah, so
combat, you roll a number of dice, and on a 6, you do a mortal wound. This makes it a 5. So if you have a lot of Saurus units, I think, anytime you're increasing that output, it's just a nice throw in at the end of combat. And I don't even think that's what makes Coalesce great. I think it's the damage reduction that comes next, which is the scaly skin. Subtract 1 from the damage inflicted to a minimum of 1, so you can't go to 0 damage for attacks that target friendly coalesced units.
Oh, darn.
Saurus, Croxigore, or monster. So if you're not a Crox or a Saurus, but you're a monster, you're still getting that benefit. And correct me if I'm wrong, it used to pretty much just be the monsters and Thunder Lizards that would get that. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, so the way it was before, in Thunder Lizards, the original round of it was your whole army reduced damage by 1, which was nuts. This is what it ended up becoming post some number of FAQs and point adjustments where things that are supposed to be durable are durable. Your skinks don't get to be -1 damage because they're in the sub faction. It's silly, but it was sub faction before. Now it's just all coalesced have this, which is really good. To be able to, because it's not melee, it's just all damage reduced to 1 or reduced by 1 to a minimum of 1. The other armies pay for their increase in damage in their war scroll costs or whatever benefits that they are. Like, there is a premium to be paid for that, and you're just going, nope, sorry, don't care. No different than Nurgle pays a premium for having a 5-up ward. If you have spells or abilities that turn off ward saves, you are effectively increasing your points leverage against your opponents. And this is one of those things that I'll talk about in terms of trying to get a good exchange for the points that you brought to the table, where just like we talked about before, if I can tie up a 600-point unit with a 200-point unit, and I'm playing 1,800 versus 1,400 points on the table, sign me up. If from my outset my 2,000 points are unaffected by yours, but the existence of my army, and let's just say +1 damage, comes at a 10% premium. I'm now from the outset 2,000 versus 1,900, and I've kind of put you in a weird headspace because nothing's doing as much damage as you thought it would. Man, take that to the bank all day. Right, this is one of the things that a lot of people were using to try and kill Sons of Bahamut at their Halcyon days, where you're reducing their damage, you're reducing the number of attacks that they make, and Seraphon were the perfect counter for it.
I remember playing against Christian before he moved, and he had Thunder Lizards, just the default Thunder Lizards, and I was playing Iron Jaws, and I got so frustrated because I felt like I couldn't kill anything. And it starts to add up, because then you still have pretty decent saves across your Saurus, across your Bastillodons, your Stegodon. Like, there's not bad saving throws either, so you're doing less in general because they're durable models, and then the damage that's going through is reduced. And I'm like, all these things that should be real punchy are half as effective.
Nothing. Yeah, so right, that we'll take that perfect example. Your War Chanter's like 140 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
the benefit that you bring him for is to do +1 damage for your damage 1 guys. Cool, that's 140 points out the window. You're already at a 140 point disadvantage. Your Maw Crusher is for the most part damage 2 and damage 3 on their, or they're all damage 2 now. I can't remember.
I think now it's 2 across the board, but
cool.
Yeah.
Your 500 point Maw Crusher is now half as effective. You're effectively down another 250 points. All right, so now walking into that game, you're down 390 points in effectiveness. That's catastrophic in terms of your ability to play that particular game.
And it just messes. The last thing I would say is usually when you're staring at a combat, you're kind of doing the mental math of, okay, I can put this many wounds through, can do this much damage. It changes the game when you have to reevaluate kind of that math that you do before each combat to say how actually effective is what I'm sending against this target. And you're starting to second guess yourself. You're trying to set up additional charges, and you just start making bad decisions to like overcome that deficit. And that's, you say often you want to make your opponent make as many decisions as possible so that they start making bad decisions. And it just stacks another one on that kind of, what do they have to think about? What do they have to adjust for?
Yep. Increase the mental load.
And then the monsters all get monstrous actions. We won't go through all 4 of them.
Yeah. So some of these are,
so
some of these are real run of the mill. But some of these are really good.
I think the Stegodon is amazing. 4-up, strike last.
That's a good one. There's 2 that really stand out to me. The first is the Troglodon. It's a 2-up, and until the end of the following combat phase, the range of its Stench of Death ability is 12 inches instead of 9 inches, which is a -1 to hit bubble. And you don't need the Troglodon to be in combat to carry out this monster's action. This is just something that it can do and increase the range of its effectiveness, tagging other units and things like that. That's huge. Troglodons are 275 points, I believe. You're going to see them everywhere in Seraphon list. They're just so good. And then the other one that I really like is the Battletome.
Yeah.
Pick an enemy unit within 3 inches that is not a monster and roll a dice. If the roll is less than the number of models in that unit, that enemy unit suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the roll. And that's just exceptional, right? The combat profile of the Stegodon itself isn't particularly very good, and it has some sins to pay for in terms of like its laser. But having a unit that just is going to do D6 mortal wounds every combat phase for existing for 200 to 265 points, depending on what version of it that you take. And I think you're taking the 200 point version because the Arc of Sotek is 20 attacks and every 6 to hit is a mortal wound in combat. In addition to the D6 you just did.
Yeah.
That's really good. And then the one we haven't talked about is the Carnosaur has the ability to just pick a model. And if you beat the wounds characteristic on the roll, that model just dies.
Yeah. I always like that, like the Star Drake picking a model in the middle of a battle line and eating with the cavernous jaws. Like you can really mess up somebody, from what model you choose and how it affects.
Kill the unit chain.
Yeah.
They can't issue their own commands then. They have to rely on someone else to do it.
So then we got command traits. I think so. Slan only, which I think there's some cool like add attacks. And then I think there's one that manipulates wound rolls, which I think are pretty solid. The once per battle always bugs me though, so I think I go Dominating Mind. But what is your favorite?
That's pretty good. For the Slan, I really like the Custodian of Divine Technology. You get to give the Slan 2 artifacts, and then you also still have your normal artifact that you get to take on top of that. So you effectively get 3 artifacts for taking a Slann General. And now you have to take the artifacts out of the Coalesce book, which is fine since Arcane Tome got nerfed from being taken by Wizards, because that would have been the first no-brainer pick.
Mm-hmm.
Turn your Slann into a forecaster, like, yeah, let's go. So I really like that. The Coalesce command traits for the Saurus, all 3 of them are good.
Yeah.
I see value in all 3 of them, right? The Prime War Beast, you're adding 1 to the attacks characteristics of your mount. Carnosaurs are mean as heck.
Adding a 4th attack to the massive jaws. I mean, that's a 5 damage when they're at the top of their profile.
It's gross. Yeah, it's real mean. You go 4 attacks, 4s by 3s, Ren 2, damage 5. And you're +1 to wound if you're in a blood frenzy. You all out attack, so you're 4 attacks, 3s by 2s, Ren 2, damage 5. Cool, thanks, man.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Wrath of Aeons kind of jumped out at me, buffing the attack characteristic of nearby Saurus and Kroxigor, because I feel like you're running a lot of Saurus and Kroxigor in Coalesce, so it seems synergistic, right?
It's a good one. The one drawback is once per battle, so you have to be really judicious when you use it. Don't get me wrong. People love +1 attack bubbles. Wholly within 12 inches is enormous.
It's a big bubble. Yeah.
You got to be kind of aggressive with your Slann, right? You got to be wholly within 12 inches of those units that are in combat. There's a way to do it, and it's I don't think it's out of the question necessarily. But you do have to be more careful with one of your more important pieces, because Slann are crucial to the function of basically any Seraphon list.
Sure.
So artifacts.
Yeah, I mean, you get to take them all if you do the
True.
ability.
He's got all the trinkets.
Yeah, so the combination that I would like to go for on my Slann, if I'm giving him all the artifacts. So the first one's the Crystalline Skull. So basically, every time you cast a spell that's not unbound, you tick the number up by 1, and then once per battle in your hero phase, you pick an enemy unit within 12 inches, and on a 3-up, you do a mortal wound, on all of those dice that you've rolled. So Slanns are 3 casts, so you're gonna potentially be able to build that up pretty reliably. And then the other one that
real quick, as a TO, would you put any rules in your pack about smashing crystal skulls at the table, and if that would be allowed or not? Because what I'm thinking, those crystal skull vodka bottles? I'm thinking you put a D6 into it for each one of these, then you smash it, and the dice roll themselves. Like, that would be pretty cool.
If you got one that's made out of sugar, I think I'd be cool with it. But the nature of broken glass, I think, is what really kills you there. If you can get one of those ones that just a clear sugar skull, I'm here for it.
But no real glass and no real turtles.
Yeah,
got it.
No real turtles, no real glass. You can bring it, you can put your dice in it. You just have to pour them out.
Pretend to break it. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. The other one that I really like is pairing it with the Ixie Grubs. So at the start of your hero phase, you heal a wound, and then you get to reroll 1 casting, dispelling, or unbinding roll. So especially since you're trying to charge up the Crystal Skull, I think those 2 things work really well together.
Yeah.
And on the Saurus side, again,
that gaze is pretty
all 3
solid.
are good. The gaze is really good. the pendant is kind of wonky. So you get 1 to the attacks of the bearer's melee weapons. But if you have a half of your wounds characteristics, you get +2. Right, it's only for the guy on top. So like, I guess you could like really turbocharge 1 Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur, where you've got 6 of your weapon attacks, 3 of your clawed forelimbs, and 4 of your jaw attacks. And that's a pretty mean combination of things. Or you can improve the rend characteristics of your weapons by 1 on your already rend 1 weapon.
And add 1 damage against heroes.
True.
He becomes just an assassin. Launch him into some
a very
hero.
expensive assassin. 285 points and is your general. But
the fact that he could go and like just put down a Maw Crusher or a zombie dread, like that is something that you then, when you pair it with the massive jaws on the Carnosaur, like there's a potential for just a significant amount of damage there.
Yeah, like if you've set this up correctly, right, which hopefully you have, like this is a character where you could potentially put down a giant in one combat phase, and in which case, cool, the fact that he's your general and you spent an artifact on him, and he's 285 points, you're feeling pretty good, because you just killed 25% of their army in one combat phase, because your whole profile is basically 2s by 2s, rend 2, damage 2 or 3. Like it's.
And you better believe the first time that happens, I'm taking it back to the hobby table after that game, and I'm putting a Sons of Behemoth like giant arm in the Carnosaur's mouth, and he'll forever be carrying it around like a dog that has found like a stick at a dog park.
Yes.
Yeah. So over to spells then, right? You have a lore for the Slann and a lore for the Skinks that are totally different from the Starborn lore that we talked about just a little bit ago. And I'd like to point out one spell that is just nonsense as it's presently written. Telepathic Summons has a casting value of a 6 and a range of 9 inches. If successfully cast, pick 1 friendly Saurus unit that is not a monster and that is visible to caster. Remove that unit from the battlefield and set it up again on the battlefield wholly within range of the caster. There is no preclusion on range of that unit to enemy units. So you can take a unit of 30 Saurus warriors over here and then put them right here in the middle of your opponent's army. And that's just where they are. Mm-hmm. And you gotta do something about it.
Yeah. I saw that one and I thought this is going to be FAQ'd.
It's so dumb. You take your Saurus warriors. You've probably Mystic Shielded them. You're just going to invest everything into this insane strategy. You've Mystic Shielded them. You're going to set them down in enemy territory. So they're going to be a 4-up with +2 to their save. Maybe you all defense them. Maybe you don't. You've got a Skink Oracle on Troglodyte nearby, handing out a -1 to hit for enemy units, so you can't even touch them. And then you power up their Celestite weapons so that they get, an extra point of rend. They're already rend 1. You'll be sitting there on rend 2, and that brick of 30 is just going to be stabbing away, just doing like little bits of damage, and then they're going to bite you. And they're going to do mortal wounds.
Yeah.
Off the bite. Like, it's so stupid.
On 5s, because you have your predatory fighters.
Depending on where it is, 4s.
Yeah, 4s, yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. All right. Let's talk Kotal's Claw or Thunder Lizard. I tend to think that the +1 to wound rolls is better than the second Monstrous Rampage, but that's just me. I always like adding to my rolls all the time.
Yeah, so So the scope of Kotal's Claw is pretty narrow. It's +1 to wound for Saurus and Kroxigor that made a charge move in the same turn. Now, thankfully, like all of the heroes have that Saurus keyword that you want to be using. I don't rate
charge. Right?
Yeah, it's just the turn in which you charge. So if your opponent can pin you in a place, you're not going to gain this benefit for most of the game. I don't think Kroxigor are very good. I think they're too many points. I don't think they do quite enough. The war spawned seems so weird and conditional. I just don't understand what the expectation is for how you use them. So in my mind, I don't even think about Kroxigors for the most part. Other than they're cool.
Yeah, which is sad because the new Crocs model looks so cool. And I read the War Scroll, and we'll talk War Scrolls, but maybe we'll do a disappointed you the most. You're a dad, shake your head at your son you're disappointed in for his decisions. It's the Kroxigor that I'm just it could have been so good.
Yeah, the Thunder Lizards I think is the home run here. So your monsters get to carry out 2 monstrous rampages instead of 1. So we just went through that whole table where you have all those really good ones, and you don't even need to field a ton of monsters to take advantage of this. Being able to double up on Roar and Titanic Duel on the same monster is huge. So we just talked about this one super assassin, very stealthy, Old Blood on Carnosaur, who's your general and has an artifact.
Yeah, he's you've invested heavily in him. He's
exactly.
The chosen one.
He is the chosen one. And you send him in on this Maw Crusher. You roar him, so that means that your opponent's not going to be able to all attack you. They're not going to be all defense against you. They're not going to be able to use any special command abilities that they might have. And then you Titanic Duel, which means that you get to save your point for all-out defense in the somehow event that they get to swing back at you. That combination alone is devastating. To be able to not have to pick and choose, you could take 2 or 3 monsters. Some of them won't end up being behemoths based on Thunder Lizards, but having the ability to just go, I don't have to think about this. I just get to do what I want when I want. Now, you are still limited to, you can only do each of the rampages once in every phase or every charge phase. But to be able to not have to make that decision or not have to get a second monster over there to do the thing that you want to do is enormous.
There are many times where I'm like, I wish I could do one more thing. Yeah. Yep.
Wish I could do both. And this lets you do both.
All right, you sold me. I want Thunder Lizards. I want my souped up Old Blood on the Carnosaur, and I want to go monster hunting. I want to kill Kragnos. I want to kill a giant. I want to kill just all the big things that are so many more points than this guy. And I want to take them down and make people cry.
I can't
take trophies.
I'll yell at them and I'll say, put it in your dead pile.
Pre-COVID, there was a Bone Splitters player in the UK who had a list of all of the monsters in the game, and he was trying to kill all of the monsters with his Bone Splitters army. That was really neat. You could do that with your Saurus Old Blood assassin.
I'd make a scroll. I'd take a scroll, I'd get parchment and I'd unroll it and I'd write what I killed and the date, and then I'd have them sign, and I'll just unfurl the scroll and hold it up whenever I need to show my dominance.
Well, then you mark trophies on the model, right? Like you were talking about.
Yeah.
That'd be a very cool display base. You have your playing base, and then you have a butcher style bigger base at the bottom, and it narrows up, and you just take it off of the plinth, to actually play it in game.
That'd be great. I guess I'm playing Seraphon.
There you go.
So, all right, Troy, Coalesced or Starborn, and why? Which are you going?
Probably Coalesced, just because big bad things sound more fun. So, and a little less finesse, or a lot less finesse.
It does seem a little bit more like I'm gonna walk up and punch you in the face. Josh, how about you?
Same, and mainly because I've always wanted to play, and I know you can play any of the models with either one, right? But more bang for your buck with Coalesced, and like I've fallen into the Battletome like just super tank trap before with like a big model, thinking, oh no, I could take him out, right? And he just chews up, so many points the whole game, and he never dies, right? And I've always wanted to play Battletome, so yeah, that's where I'm at.
I think, yeah, I want to play Coalesce because it sounds like fun, but I think I'd also really like playing with Croak, Aslan, and a bunch of skinks, and just like having fun in the hero phase, just moving around, getting some of the hunters to snipe. Like, my brain says that would be fun, but then tournament tie takes over, and by round 3, I'm done.
You're exhausted.
Brain meld, yeah.
You'd be looking at your buddies playing this 255 point heat seeking missile.
And I'd just be like looking at Croak like, well, Croak, it's me and you again, buddy. Brendan, which of the two is something that you could see yourself kind of trotting out there if you had the...
Yeah, goodness. I suppose it would probably really just depend on my mood. If I have, for those who don't know me, I'm a player who really enjoys playing Age of Sigmar at the highest level possible. That doesn't mean that I don't enjoy kind of taking the night off, as it were, from time to time, and playing something a little more straightforward. But I'm known for playing very control-heavy armies. I think I'd really enjoy the challenge of cracking a Starborn list. Mm-hmm. But if we're just going to roll up to an RTT, I kind of like the place where I have been with the game recently, where I've just not really been feeling it. Man, it's Coalesced all the way. Give me a bunch of big, stupid, bleep off monsters, and we're just gonna push them across the board. Everyone loves Beastclaw Raiders. It's the army that cures all sadness.
It really does.
You just do Beastclaw Raiders, but dinosaurs. It's tropical Beastclaw Raiders.
Yeah. Tropical dump trucks or monster trucks. Yeah.
The advantage though is you actually have real meaningful wizards in this. So you could take Croak and a bunch of monsters and just go whoop.
Yeah.
But if I'm sufficiently tuned up, I think Starborn is the list that I would end up having the most fun playing.
I really I gotta be honest, man. There's something about adding 3 5s of those hunters to just go teleport hero hunting that seems super fun.
Yeah, they're
Let's
for what they are. They're so mean.
Let's do that. So we ended up talking a lot about the spells, the artifacts, kind of in the depiction of those two things. So let's go into the War Scrolls. Let's just kind of pick some that look like a lot of fun. If there's any this has to be in every army, I'd definitely be interested in that. It sounds like Croak has to be in every army. I mean, that's what I've convinced myself of.
Croak or Stormmaster, I feel like you cannot leave without bringing a Slan of some variety. You are going to pay a premium for Croak, right? You're paying for 4 casts, 4 unbinds, +2 to cast, +2 to unbind, +2 to dispel. Knows all the spells in the Slan lore for whichever he's being played in, Coalesced or Starborn. They share a lot of things that are similar. He just does everything that a Slan does, but better. And is exceptionally difficult to kill because you have to kill him in one phase, basically. Now there's
a
gamble mechanic here to it, but you got to do it in, like, you can't chip damage him. You got to do it in one go.
Yeah. So
if you don't do it,
here's dead for innumerable ages. At the end of each phase, if any wounds are allocated to this model, roll 3d6, add the number of wounds allocated. On a 20 plus, this model is slain. On any other roll, heal all wounds allocated to this model. So you do 8 wounds to him, you roll your 3d6, unless you're rolling a 12 or better on those 3 dice, which, you know, is probable, but it feels like anything less than 8 wounds is just resetting. And it's nuts. Like,
well, and even then, a 10 is still your 50% roll.
Right.
Like, and if you're the Seraphon player who's allowed your Croak to get in combat for your opponent to do 10 wounds to him, like, hey, you deserve to lose that 400-point model.
And you have him in a coalesced. Does he get the? No, he doesn't have the Q.
No, yeah. So he doesn't get the -1 damage because he's not a Star Sarcophagus or a monster.
Yeah.
But you could, you know, have a Saurus Guard unit there to steal wounds off him. Exactly.
And then the 3 dice, you get the 3 dice for a 4-up extra command point with him. I mean, that saves you having to ever use that. I forget the name of it now, but the is it a heroic action where you roll a dice and on a 4-up you get an extra command point?
Yep. Yeah, you basically have no need to do that when you're playing with Slans. Yeah, and then he's got the spell that you can cast it multiple times to do, you know, D3 mortal wounds to 3 units within 12 inches of him.
Yep.
Obviously, you toss a skink wizard of some variety out ahead of him to
cast through him. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, you can do it up to 3 times. You can be doing 3d3 mortal wounds to something. I mean, that's gonna kill on average most foot heroes. You're +2 to cast. So you only need to roll a 5 to get this done. Like, you know, sign me up. And then Star Masters are basically this, but just worse.
Yeah.
You know, and you get the points premium back for that, right? You don't pay as many points to do that. You pair that with an Astroth Bearer, which you're going to be taking in a Starborn army. You're getting +1 to cast, and you're getting 6 inches to the additional range to the Seraphon wizards that are within it. So that 12 that we just talked about is now 18. All those other spells that we talked about, you know, for it doesn't have to be Starborn, but you know, you're really going to be taking Astroth Bearers and Starborn lists, not necessarily in Coalesced, but they're also good in Coalesced. You're doing that. It hands out a ward save. I mean, like, it's just the pairing together of all the stuff that works is so silly sometimes. You know, when you're playing Starborn, you know, and you're Croak and you've got +3 to cast and your stuff is an extra 6-inch range.
Yeah.
You're in for a bad time. Like, but you're investing a lot of points to make that happen, which I think is the other key to this. Because there are definitely some traps in this book in terms of stuff that, you know, maybe you really kind of like, or maybe it kind of looks good. I know you're excited about the Raptidons. I don't think they're very good. They're super cool models. They've got some really neat mechanics. I just think they kind of suck.
Yeah. I just like the synergy with having both of them. But once again, to your point, it does require you to buy 2 units to get effectiveness out of that, like, which is always, you know, there's always a tax, right? We're always paying an AoS list building tax.
So it's 300 points for 10 models, which in and of itself isn't terrible. You know, the things that we're talking about here in terms of being able to pair together is the Raptidon Hunters at the end of your charge phase, if it's more than 3 inches from all enemy units and within 12, you can make a charge move. That's pretty cool. And you shoot. If it does so, targeting you within 3 inches of a charger's unit, which is the other unit. I made a charge move in that phase. And their shooting attack is fine. It's a 12-inch range, 2 attacks, 4s by 4s, Ren 2, damage 1. So you're talking about a total of 10 shots. 5 are going to hit, 2.5 are going to wound. They're Ren 2, you're going to do 1-2 points of damage. And in your cold-blooded unity, what do you get in exchange for that? +1 to hit.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. On your Lance attacks that are 3 attacks apiece, 4s by 3s, damage 1. Now you get an extra point of damage if it's contesting an objective or it's within 3 inches of arcane, and that's fine. You know, that's for the skink unit, like for doing some damage, like it's okay. Is it 300 points? Probably not.
Yeah, you do get cool looking frills though on lizards in a 12-inch move.
Get that, yeah.
So there is an upside there. You get to paint some frills.
Gotta love the frills.
The 5-up save too. Like they're not going to stick around long. That's the real downside here is for units that you want to get in combat or close. There's not a lot of staying power.
No, not at all. Their 5-up saves, like, yeah, they're in the Starborn list. They're a really good unit to take the benefit of being -1 to wound them, because they're movement 12, and you can use the redeploy in your opponent's turn to start moving them in and around where you want, or you can use Speed of Huanchi in your hero phase to move them and then move them again subsequently. Like, there's some cool stuff that you can do, but I don't know that I'm building my plan around chargers on a on turn-to-turn basis.
Troy and Coop, I would be interested in, as you guys kind of flip through any war scrolls that you want to kind of take through the paces with our expert.
I want to know about the big giant engines in the back.
Okay.
Which of those are any good? Engine of the Gods, Stegadon. Mostly model based.
Yeah, so the Engine of the God has some skins to pay for. This is so when I say that, I'm talking about a war scroll that was really good for a really long time or did something that was really kind of absurd. So the Engines of the Gods were heavily manipulated in the sense of, you would pair them with a Slann. You got to roll 3d6 and take the results or pick and choose between all of your dice. It was really good. There was a 4d6 and you got to pick the 3d6 that you wanted. And on 18s, you got to have a second turn immediately. It was really silly. So there are 300 points. They are totems, so they get to hand out command abilities to a Holy Within 18 inches, which is pretty good. They have a shooting profile that you're not going to write home about. Their combat profile is fine. They're 14 wounds with a 4-up save, so they're pretty beefy. If you're playing Thunder Lizards, they're reducing incoming damage by 1. And in combat, they can get +1 to their save if they're fighting a unit of 5 or more models. So that's not bad. They do some impact hits, but the big thing that they have is the Cosmic Engine. So in your shooting phase, you can either harness or reserve the power of its Cosmic Engine. If you say that you harness, you'll pick one of the effects below and generate a power score by rolling 2d6. If you say that you're going to reserve the power, nothing happens, and you can roll 1 additional dice the next time this unit harnesses the power of its Cosmic Engine. So you can save up all of those extra dice. Now, you can potentially, if you don't do any dice rolling, wait until Battle Round 5 and roll 76 at the power levels. But that's going to be up to you. We'll talk about this. So the first one is Healing Light. On a score of 2 to 6, nothing happens. On a score of 7+, you heal D3 wounds allocated to friendly Seraphon units wholly within 6 inches of this unit, you roll separately for each. That's fine. That's okay. Really important to note here that as we talk about these, missing the roll is going to come at a larger and larger penalty. The next up with Bolts of Azure Light. On a power score of 2 to 8, you suffer 1 mortal wound. On a score of a 9+, you pick 1 enemy unit within 24 inches. Roll a number of dice equal to the power score. For each 4-up, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. That's not bad. That's one that I'd really maybe hold on to until the second battle round. I'm maybe rolling 3 dice at it. I'm doing on average, I'm rolling a 10. So on average, I'm doing about 5 mortal wounds. That's pretty good. If you really wanted to hold out for that 76 dice roll, and you're gonna potentially junk into your opponents like 18 mortal wounds on their big scary hero, like, okay. But next up is Time Slows. And a score of 2 to 10, you suffer D3 mortal wounds. On 11 up until the end of the turn, you get strike first effects to friendly Seraphon units wholly within 6 inches of this unit. You got to charge it in that turn. You got to have things that are close by. They got to have relatively small bases to be wholly within 6. But if you can pull it off, it's a really good combination. And then the last one is Starlight Summons. On a 2 through 12, you suffer 3 mortal wounds. On a 13+, you can summon 1 unit of Saurus Warriors of 10 models or 1 skin cohort of 20 miles to the battlefield, wholly within 6 inches and more than 9 from all enemy units. The engine is quite a bit less good than it used to be.
Yeah.
These are interesting abilities, and at 300 points, it's probably a little too steep for my blood. I'd come back to this probably if it's about 250. And in my mind, the real winner is that Bolts of Azure Energy. Just hanging on to that until the right moment where you're going to let your opponent really have it. You're not gonna sit around with the old 4 engines list and hope that you're going to be rolling 18s to get more consecutive turns in a row. Those days are long gone. Yeah, it's tough, right? They can't be battle line. Regular Stegodons can, which is kind of neat. But regular Stegodons are also 300 points, which also feels a little steep. Just because they're fine. But I think the greatest value that you're going to be finding in this book are in the categories of Saurus Guard, Saurus Warriors, Skinks, your regular battle line, and then fleshing out the support pieces that go along with it. Because while Saurus Warriors come in at 10 for 200, they're 2 wounds apiece with a 4-up save. So you're talking about 20 wounds there. They have a native +1 save built into if they're contesting objectives or within certain parts of the board. That's really good, right? You're talking Coalesced. They're the ones that take damage reduction. They're a great unit just to have anywhere.
So speaking of Saurus Warriors and Saurus Guard, dollars for donuts. I get the feeling Saurus Warriors are going to be better, but I guess I'd like your take.
Yeah, so there's a reason to take both of them, and the reason that you take the Saurus Guard is to protect your heroes and specifically your Slans. Protecting your Slan and your Astrolith Bearer, regardless of Starborn or Coalesced, is huge. You are taking those units to protect those very expensive heroes from your opponents, trying to at range put damage into them and messing up the engine that you're trying to run. Saurus Warriors are going to be more of your straight line troops. You are going to be sending them in, where your Saurus Guard are a 3-up base save. That's great. That's cool. That's awesome. Glad you're doing it. The Saurus Warriors, you're chucking in there, giving them Mystic Shield, giving them their +1 that they're going to have for contesting objectives and that kind of thing. And then if you hit them with an all-out defense, they're ignoring Ren 2 and they're rolling a 3-up save. Now, it's a meaningful investment, but there's not much better battle line units in the game than 200 points, 200 wounds worth. They have rend, they've got a fair number of attacks, and they're going to be doing mortal wounds at the end of it. It's, you know, it's good. They are a absolute unit to be reckoned with. And the thing that like we haven't talked about, and we probably should have touched on in Starborn, is when you're talking about the redeploy that you'd be getting off of the Skinks. When you run or receive the redeploy command with Skinks, you roll 2d6 and you can pick either result.
Take the higher,
so
yeah,
or the lower,
or the lower.
for some
Yeah,
reason.
yeah.
If you really wanted that one, I guess. But that's meaningful. For 85 points, you get to put 10 incredibly annoying models on the table. Like they're not great, but if you are tying your opponents up with units that mean nothing to you, like you're already ahead. So the new unit that I really like is the Agrodon Lancers and their Sora Scar Veteran.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little spendy at 210, and then the Sora Scar Veteran on Agrodon comes in at 175. So that's, you know, it's probably a little too much for what they are. I really like what they did with this book and what they've done with some other books where you have a very specific hero that pairs with a very specific unit that gives it a very specific benefit. I think that's super thematic. One of the things that the Agrodons have is at the start of the battle, you have a rage score of 0. And at the end of each combat phase, if this unit's within 3 inches of any enemy units, you increase its rage score by 1 to a maximum of 3. And when you're attacking, you add your rage score to your Rending Bites and Striking Talons, which are base 3 attacks. You can get them up to 6 attacks a model at 3s and 3s, Rend 2, damage 2. This is the kind of unit that I think would pair really well with the other sub-faction, and it's escaping me, for Coalesced, the non-Thunder Lizard, Kotal's Claw, where you're getting the +1 to wound off of them, because this is where you'd spend an all-out attack and use your bonus to charge, so your whole profile is 2s by 2s.
2s, yeah.
That's bananas.
Yeah. It's pretty good. You gotta set it all up right, because the thing that you're gonna try and do is you're going to try and get your rage score to 2. Your Sora Scar Veteran can, at the start of the combat phase, roar. You get an extra +1 to your rage score, and you're going to try and set off a tactical nuke of Agrodon Lancers. But in order to really pull that off, you have to finish the combat phase within 3 inches of an enemy unit, bump the score up, kill whatever you're in range with shooting or magic or something like that. So that way you can go off into the movement phase and really blow up the core of what your opponent's army is. It's not an easy thing to set up, but it's something that you can do. It's something. It's a neat war scroll, and when you compare it to like the new models that we got for the Croxigors, their role feels very clear. And what they're trying to do makes sense. Whereas the Croxigor, and I won't belabor this point much longer, just don't seem to have a very specific role within the army, especially at their points level.
It feels kind of like Trogs before Trogs got good and gets like. I don't know, like it just they missed something, and I'm not even sure I know what it is, other than their attack profile seems
it doesn't make any sense to me. Your regular Croxigors are supposed to be your Horde Busters, which is cool, that's fine. They're 4 attacks apiece. 4s by 3s run 1 damage 2, or 3s by 3s run 1 damage 3. If the target unit has 10 or more models, 6s to hit are 2 hits. Cool. You get your bites. Cool. The War Spawn make no sense to me at all. They're supposed to be the better unit. They get fewer attacks. They're Ren 2, so that's good. You are -1 to wound them with missile weapons for some reason. They get their 4th attack if there's a friendly skink unit wholly within 12 inches that has models that have been slain. So
in this phase,
yeah. So they have to have been fought against. Models have to have died, and the unit still has to be there.
Yeah.
Skinks have a base save of a 6-up or a 5-up if you give them a shield.
How many points are 3 Croxagore setting you back? The War Spawn?
Too much. So the War Spawn are 185 and the regular ones are 175. And then the other part that doesn't make sense to me is their battle line in Kotal's Claw. Right? So their battle line in the Coalesced Army, cool, where you don't get a huge benefit for taking Skinks. So you can't even pair it with because I guess the way that you conceivably could set it up is to play Starborn and have that unit of Skinks be fighting something that has no rend and they're -1 to wound. So no, I lost 1 Skink, save me. And then these Croxagore War Spawn go, okay, and now they're turbocharged and they're gonna do their thing.
Comparatively, right? So Croxagores are 4 wounds, move 5, 4-up save for the War Spawn, and their attack profile is 4s to hit, Ren 2, damage 2, and you get the 1 big weapon. Then you've got the mostly useless Theridons from the Slaves to Darkness. For 180 points, you're getting 3 of them, 5 wounds. Granted, it's a 5-up save unless you give them the shields. But with the big axes, they're 3s and 3s, Ren 2, damage 3. You add 1 to your wound rolls if they've taken a wound or mortal wound, and you can once per battle unleash savagery and add an attack, plus give them marks of corn, which add even more. The damage output for what is, when I think of a relatively comparable points and unit size, the Croxagores just don't.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. They don't do anything.
They look cool though. I want to paint some Croxagores
for sure.
But that's about it.
They're a hard miss. I see a clearer role for a unit that I don't like in Agrodons. Sorry, not Agrodons, the Raptidons, the skink ones, than I do for Croxagores. At least I can say I can piece together a strategy for how I'd use a Raptidon unit in a meaningful way. So yeah.
So let's say you were a guy that really liked the Ripperdactyl models. Where would those fall? Where would those fall into a list?
This pairs right into what I was talking about with the Agrodons, where you have a hero and the hero pairs well with them, and they do a very specific thing. So Ripperdactyl Chief is going to set you back, 110, which isn't bad, and a unit of Ripperdactyls is 120. Ripperdactyls I think are really good. So you get your little blot toad, and you get to mark units with them, which is neat and fun. And while you are fighting a unit that has a bloat toad token on it, you get +1 to hit rolls and wound rolls, which is really good.
Can we just talk about that ability, Toad Rage?
Toad Rage. So your jaw attacks then are three attacks apiece, 3s and 2s if you're fighting something with Toad Rage, Ren 1, damage 2, which is really good. These are a great unit to eat Unleash Hells, because number one, they're -1 to be hit with missile weapons in general, and Unleash Hell can only hit them on 6s. And the Ripperdactyl Chief, once per battle, can just add 1 to the attacks characteristics of your melee weapons used by Ripperdactyl units. So your 120 point unit, or whatever we just said it was, is now suddenly 12 attacks at 3s and 2s, run 1 damage 2. Like, that's a great unit. They're keyword skink. So if you're playing them in Starborn and you're playing them with your Fangs of Sotek list, this is a unit that's eligible to be redeployed for free. For the first 2 times that you do it. Great unit. Pterodons are also really good. The Pterodons fall into a very, very similar price point, 120 points for their riders, and then where's their chief? I just had it. And also 110. Cool. The Pterodon riders, their special thing is once per battle. For each model in these units, they're going to drop rocks, and they're 4-up D3 mortal wounds. And you have the move characters of that enemy unit until your next hero phase. Like, that's so silly. And then once per battle, if your chief does it, you do it on 2-ups. Like, that's so crazy to me. You could just field a bunch of Pterodons and a bunch of Ripperdactyls, and like, I don't know that you're gonna win a ton of games necessarily, but like, you can do some really cool stuff. Like, I can't imagine trying to explain to my opponent, like, yep, so this movement 16 units, I'm gonna fly over this very important unit that you have that has no ward save. I've got 9 of these. Like, well, how much did that cost you? 360 points, and I'm going to trigger the hero, who's 110 points. So we're going to drop 10 rocks on 2-ups. So like, you're going to get like between 8 and 10 of them, and that's going to be 8 to 10 D3 mortal wounds. So that's going to be 16 to 20 mortal wounds that you've dropped on. Like, let's just, we're talking Slaves of Darkness for comparison. A unit of 10 chosen, very popular unit. Yeah. Doesn't have a ward save base. You've killed between
half the unit,
6 and 9
more, yeah.
Of that unit,
and you have a very angry Slaves to Darkness.
6 and 7 chosen.
You have a very angry Slaves to Darkness player if you're dropping rocks in that manner.
And guess what? Now you still have units that just get to flood the board and fill up space and be really annoying, because they're also skink units who also get to do the free redeploys. And as they move around the board, you go, oh, nope, here's 3 Pterodon riders that you have to deal with. They're not very good now. I've dropped the rocks. But I'm a pinion place, and now the Ripperdactyls are going to come in and do the damage, in an actual combat phase. It's a great 3.0 book in the fact that I feel like a lot of what you're taking here feels really good. I think there's some pretty clear and obvious misses in terms of some of the units that you're going to take. I feel like that's one of the things that we haven't seen a lot in 3.0 books, where most of the time I can say pretty confidently, you can take every unit and feel good about it. There are some more skills in here, though, where I look at and I go, what were you doing? What on earth were we thinking in the development side of things? And this isn't one of those like super expansive battle tomes where, it's 900 war scrolls and you're like, yeah, of course they missed this. Like you have so many other choices in here. Yeah, they phoned it in at the end. I get it. So
let's talk one more war scroll, because we talked about it earlier and we said we'd come back to it, the Troglodon, and then we'll kind of
then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
So the Skink Oracle on Troglodon, you're going to see so many of them. So get familiar with the war scroll. So the Skink Oracle has the appropriate keyword where he can be used by a slum anywhere on the table, and at movements 10 to 7 and potentially being teleported, like, you're gonna see him in a lot of places he maybe shouldn't be. like the combat profiles are not what you're talking about. The shooting profile isn't what you're worried about. It's regenerative, so every hero phase it heals D3 wounds. Period. Enemy units within 3 inches of it can't use Inspiring Presence. Period. It does some mortal wounds on 6s with its noxious spittle and venomous jaws. So like, you know, that's cool, right? Like, you know, it's not to be trifled with. It's got a very interesting spell where enemy units that are within 3 inches of an objective feature or terrain that you picked can't run or retreat and must have the results of any charge rolls while they're within range of it, but it doesn't affect skink units and units that can fly. That's kind of cool. But the thing that you're taking the Skink Oracle for is the Stench of Death. You subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by enemy units within 9 inches of any friendly units with this ability. That is so good. This model is on a very large, you know, chariot base, basically.
Base, yeah.
And you're going to park it behind units, or you're going to just chuck it into the line somewhere, and you're going to go, you can't do anything. This is a perfect unit to be in Starborn, to be given -1 to wound against it. You're -1 to hit, you're -1 to wound, and you know, if you've happened to cast your rend is nothing, like you're not going to do anything to this model ever again. And it's just going to sit there and tie up your army and be the point in which Croak is going to blast his 3d3 you know, just bomb spell out of, like, you know, like it's so silly. Like, it's great.
That's awesome.
And I'm looking points on that bad boy.
275, I believe. Skink Oracle on 270.
Worth it all day.
Absolutely. You know, he's a 1-cast, 1 unbind wizard himself, which is fine. But the fact that he's the kind of wizard that Croak and the Star Master can use spells through anywhere on the table instead of just within 12 inches of, which is also a pretty good range. You've got an Astrolith Bearer that's going to increase the range of the spells from the Oracle. You're parking the Oracle in the middle of your opponent's battle line. You know, you're going to use the Primordial Mire to pick something nearby, so they can't retreat from the Oracle. They can't run if they're near the Oracle. Their charge moves don't work near the Oracle. Like, this is, from a combining abilities perspective, one of the silliest like single war scrolls that like is this super odd tech piece that you have to account for in a way that like you typically don't have to account for in other armies.
All right. I'm going to ask the question, Brendan.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to put you on the spot. I know usually you have more time to prepare. If you were going to sit down and kind of say, okay, Ty, you want to play a coalesced, here's like a core of what you want to look for. What am I thinking for like a off the cuff trial run for getting a list out there for coalesced?
Your
battle line.
Yeah. Your starting point is, you know, picking either between a Slann or a Croak. And then I know we talked about the Old Blood on Carnosaur. I'd save the 30 points and go Scar Veteran on Carnosaur because he's even more of a heat-seeking missile just naturally. He's got a rule called Maim and Tear at the end of the combat phase. For every wound that you allocated to that enemy unit on a 5-up, you do more mortal wounds.
I like it.
Yeah, so that so you're looking at, you know, somewhere between so that's 650. Yes, that's your 650 starting points. That's a tough one.
Your 20 Saurus are going to set you back 400 because you want a block of them just to create a bad day for your opponent.
Yep. So that's your halfway point. That's 1,000 points there. But we've gotten for the most part, our big expensive stuff out of the way. Yeah, you probably go Astrolith Bear, Scar Veteran on Agrodon, because the lowest you're going to get is 2 drops at this point. Then 2 units of those Agrodons.
210 each, so that's 420. Astrolith is what, like 140?
140, and then the Saurus is 175. So that's, you're about 1,700 in that case. You've got all your battle line taken care of, and I'd probably fill out Skinks the rest of the way.
Done. Let's go.
Yeah, and if you're doing that's where I'd go Kotal's Claw, where you only have the 1 monster. You wouldn't be wrong to do Thunder Lizards there, for doubling up on the monstrous actions, but you're going to be getting a larger benefit in Kotal's Claw with that particular combination of things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, we got to work in the Skink Oracle. I'm trying to go down somewhere too. Shoot.
Maybe that list you don't add Skinks, you just bring the Troglodon Oracle.
Yeah, you want screens somewhere though.
Yeah.
You maybe have to drop one of your 2 Agrodon Lancers, hey?
That or you drop Croak down to a Star Master.
But then I'm breaking my always bring Croak rule.
Sure, then you are breaking your always bring Croak rule. But if you take the Star Master, then you can bring your Crystal Skull vodka.
Oh yeah. Yeah, okay, I'm back to it.
Yeah.
So really all you have to do there, right, is 120, because then you could drop one of the Lancers, and then you have another unit of Skinks, or you can look to add in, some Ripperdactyls or some Pterodon Riders to make your opponents just a little bit sadder.
Any final thoughts on Seraphon?
Yeah, it's an interesting book. I'll be very interested to see what the kind of day 1 FAQ looks like. Because there's the one spell where you're like, there's no way they mean for it to be that way. Well, it just might. But I'm interested to see if they do any points adjustments right out of the gate. I'm interested to see if they make any changes right out of the gate, like they did with the the Slaves of Darkness book, where you had rallying Varangard on 4-ups, which was awesome. A little silly, just a touch. I think you could bring it back with the cap on how many wounds you can bring back now with rally, but I don't think you should. Yeah, it's an interesting book. I'm excited to see what people who know Seraphon better than me end up doing with it. I think it's an army where you're going to have quite a bit less feels bad than you used to. And they've really made the dividing line between Starborn and Coalesced harder, so that you are getting more distinct feels between the 2 of them. So yeah. I'm a big fan of that.
Very cool. Josh, Troy, anything we missed or you want to add in?
No, I feel a little smarter now. That's all.
Yeah, no, thanks, Brendan.
Thanks for having me. It's it'll be interesting to sit down and go through this with Dan. For those that don't know, Cubic Shenanigans is the podcast that I'm on. Dan is a retired teacher who is largely the voice of the everyman in terms of when we're going through books. And what I mean by that is Dan is a player who is very interested in winning more than he loses and playing the stuff that he really likes to play. So we orient our conversations more towards how do you make stuff work rather than this unit's great and this unit's junk. I tend to skew more competitive, so I'm going to be looking for, trying to find all the things that work really well together in a book for those that are interested in playing more towards those lower number tables, single digits preferably. And our goal is to, at the end of the episode, whenever we're talking about anything Warhammer, is that you've learned something, and maybe you can approach the question with a little more creative zeal.
And for our listeners, where can they find Cubic Shenanigans, and where can they find you on the internet?
So they can find my Twitter account at hobby_bear. And then for Cubic Shenanigans, we're everywhere. It's I don't necessarily know. Like, it'd be probably easier to list a set of platforms that Dan hasn't put us on.
Yeah, it's awesome that we finally get a chance. I know Troy and myself have guested on your guys' show. It's nice that we can get you over here. We owe Dan an episode at some point. We'll have to get him on, or get you both on with us. Do like a
if a new Sylvaneth book comes out, you just have Troy and Dan talk about it.
But yeah, and thank you very much, though. This was great. Certainly, if you have any questions after listening to us kind of run through it, hit up Brendan on Twitter. Find us out there, and we'll keep the dialogue going. This is our first Battletome review on Playin and Slayin. So you were here for the first one, and now we're just gonna do them all. No, we're not.
No, probably not.
Well, I think you need Bryce back for those.
Yeah.
I think those episodes would have a very different tenor with him steering that particular show.
So, and one thing I didn't mention at the top, we are planning a charity army project for this year, where Playin and Slayin and others, hopefully within the Goonhammer Media Network, will kind of put some models out there, paint. And Brendan would like to, pick your brain as we do the hobby aspect of, here's, like, we'll say, now put this into something that might be able to
that works.
Play on the table. So you'll be our creative list consultant as we generate our models and get those painted for the a charity effort.
Yeah, several years ago that would have meant something, that I was the creative force behind designing a list, but now I'm just in it for the paint awards, right?
You're entering into your fall season of your AoS career.
There you go.
But winter is coming. All right. Well, thank you, Brendan. Appreciate it. Go find him. Cubic Shenanigans at hobby_bear. Once again, thank you, man. This was awesome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, and that is going to bring our show to a close. So, episode 70, Seraphon, banter, all the good stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed. Remember to read Shadow of the Gods as we gear up for the next 2 episodes. And we'll discuss the book, and you can feel like you're right here with us in the 4th or 5th chair. And that will be coming soon. Upcoming events, we are getting into tournament/convention season. Origins, June. I know the DKs will be there this year. I don't know in what capacity, but I think Paul's going to run some games. I can't make it. Baseball season makes it very difficult to do any kind of early summer conventions. NashCon is late August. Gen Con's right before it, first week in August. Either of you guys going to try to make it down for a day? Have you settled in on doing like a day or two, Troy? Or are you?
Yeah, I'm going to go down. I'm just going to go down for the weekend. Probably going to hook up with Marlon. He's going to be down there. I think with Jonah and some other people. So, so I'm just going to probably pop in on Friday, kind of do a Friday, Saturday, and we'll see if I actually get any events. I think events go up in a week or so here, something like that. So
Cool.
Not that I care, because I won't be there long. I mean, I can basically spend for a day and a half. You can spend in the vendor hall.
You can get a Starfinder game with Dr. Gabe, hang out with Matt and Elena, see Marlon. Yeah.
And I'm gonna stay. I'm not staying downtown. I'm just gonna it's kind of, which is so my total cost is gonna be about 10% of my normal Gen Con attendance, probably, for what it's gonna cost me to go. But that's my plan at this point. And maybe I'll drag John or somebody along with me. We'll see if I can get him to go.
Yeah, so we should talk, because apparently an artist fairy purchased me a badge. So we may need to. We'll see.
Yep. So,
well, I will not be there. So, I will remain as the adamant. I'm not doing it.
You'll have the FOMO. You'll have the FOMO.
No, I won't. No, I won't. My August is
that's true.
Packed. So let's see. We're on Twitter at Playin and Slayin Show. We're on. I don't know. Are we still on Facebook? I don't have Facebook anymore.
I don't know. I don't have Twitter, so maybe we'll figure it all out. At some point, we'll find a social media we all are on, and we'll let you know.
I think we just need to get Playin and Slayin going on Instagram and leave it at that. Yeah. All of our emails, find us, YouTube, like and subscribe, or is it subscribe and like? I don't know. Comment, and I'll check the comments 6 months from now, and I'll be like, oh, this is really cool, and say something. Do all the stuff, but mainly just, have fun gaming, spending time with friends, hobbying. It's summer, get outside, do, prime your models, do what you got to do. Keep the dice rolling, the drinks on ice, and no matter what, keep playing and slaying. I'm just gonna sit like this the whole episode.
No.
And
just,
I'm just gonna sit back behind my box at my fortress of solitude. I'm a little pissed they didn't include Seraphon dice in here. I thought some dinosaur scaled dice would be a pretty cool effect, scaly dice, and they're not in there.
That would be cool.
Yeah, Games Workshop's moved away from the horrendous dice motif.
Dick dice. They learned a lesson.
Yeah, right. I don't know. It must have been trending, and then